is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated.
What in the world is up with contenders losing to divisional rivals that aren't even at 500? We'll touch on that and more. It is Total Football Talk time, and we'll begin it right now. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Total Football Talk. Hard-hitting news, gridiron action, and fun just the way you like it. I am one of the co-hosts of this program, Cole Johnson, a.k.a. the mad scientist, the EP extraordinaire, and the EP of all EPs. I will be joined momentarily by the other co-hosts of this program. Yes, Mr. Commander's Gridiron Report, Mr. D. Willie in the evening, Mr. In-Or-Out Sports Debate. Yes, Mr. Excitement himself, D. Willie or Drew Willingham. He will join me. He will join me later or momentarily. But for now, let's get things started with the opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips right at 42, 989 on two. Ready? Break.
Now, before we get started, if you want to know what transpired for last Monday and last Thursday's game, go to Total Football Talk Extra, and that will happen every Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, on Sertoba Media's YouTube channel and the Comey Media YouTube channel. If you want to know what's going to transpire or what happened in every Monday and every Thursday game, again, Total Football Talk Extra, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central every Friday. But for now, we're going to deal with all the Sunday games, and we're going to tell you who is on a bye this week. That would be the Falcons, the Bills, the Bengals, the Saints, the Jets, and the Jaguars. That's right. Atlanta, Buffalo, Cincinnati, New Orleans, New York, the Jets, and the Duval area Jags, or Jacksonville, all had weeks on a bye. And it's time we get down to it, shall we? Now, the first contest that we will feature will be the Vikings visiting Soldier Field to visit their rival and play their arch-rival Bears. It looked like it was going to be one of those games that the Vikings were going to handle quite easily. It turned into actually a pretty good game, and it went down to the wire. And that was before the Vikings pulled it out in overtime with a John Parker Romo field goal, his third of the game, to notch the final score being the Vikings 30, the Bears 27. Now, Sam Darnold had a decent game, probably one of the better games of his year. 22 of 34, 330 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 carries for -1 yard. Aaron Jones, who I believe the Vikings really need him down the stretch and in the playoffs, he actually showed pretty big in this one. 22 carries, 106 yards to the touchdown. He also had 3 receptions, 23 yards. He did have a lost fumble, though. Jordan Addison, he had a big game, probably the biggest game of his career. 8 receptions, 162 yards and a touchdown. TJ Hockenson also supplanted a big day with him, the tight end. Got 7 receptions, 114 yards. Normally on offense, you don't see stats like this for the Vikings, but on defense, especially with Jonathan Bernard, who's having a wonderful season, you are. 5 solo tackles, 4 tackles for losses, 2 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks. And he had the only 2 sacks actually the Vikings had in that game. Now, on the Bears end, you had Caleb Williams, who started off slow and sluggish, but he rounded off into form. 32 of 47, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 6 carries for 33 yards. DJ Moore, who gets clowned heavily on Snowman in the Morning, he actually had a pretty good game. 1 carry for 13 yards. He also had 7 receptions for 106 yards and a touchdown. And Keenan Allen, he paced the Bears with catches. He had 9. He also had 86 yards and a touchdown. Now, the Bears, they feverishly got back into the game, had an onside kick where it bounced off a Viking, and they got the game-tying field goal to send it into overtime. So the Bears are showing fight. They just simply can't finish. Well, that's unfortunate. But for the Vikings, they improved to 9-2. The Bears, now they fall to 4-7. And they were once. Just think about this. One time they were 4-2. And now we stay in the Midwest, but we go from Chicago to Indianapolis, where we will talk about the contest between the Colts and the visiting Lions. Detroit, they are just simply rolling and steamrolling over people. The Colts, I think they felt as though they found their second win, going to the Meadowlands and notching a comfort behind victory off of the best performance of Anthony Richardson's short NFL career. The Lions just wasn't having it. 24-6 was the final score, and it was basically a ho-hum type of game. Jared Goff, 26-36, 269 yards, 2 carries for no yards. And although many have, and I have actually said that he is an MVP frontrunner or MVP candidate, this game really didn't show much more, or it didn't improve the stature of it. More than likely, he was going to probably sustain. But no, it didn't improve his chances, but it didn't hurt it either. Jahmyr Gibbs, he was the star in the backfield between him and David Montgomery this game. 21 carries, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 3 receptions for 9 yards. Montgomery did have an active day, just wasn't as active as Gibbs. Anthony Richardson on the other side, going back to his usual stat line, 11 of 28, 172 yards, 10 carries for 61 yards. He did not turn the ball over. He just simply was not accurate. Michael Pittman, 6 receptions, 96 yards. They pretty much paced the way for the Colts. The Colts, I think they are trying to fight for that last playoff spot, but in AFC. But I just don't think they have what it takes. And unfortunately, they don't have in their pocket a game later on down the line they can play against the Texans because they already played them twice this year. So they're definitely gonna have to win out every AFC South game they play, and they're gonna have to get a few of these key wins. Unfortunately, the losses that they can afford is starting to run out. They now fall to 5-7. The Lions, they improve with this dominating defensive performance to 10-1. All right, enough of the Midwest. Let's go down to the South, shall we? South Beach, shall we? The Dolphins, they hosted the Patriots, and they treated their division rival like a welcome mat. And once again, it was a 4-15 was the final score, and the game wasn't even that close. In fact, it was 31-0 Dolphins before we got to the fourth quarter. Tua Tagovailoa, I would probably say he had his best game since he's been back off of his concussion sitting. 29 of 40, 317 yards, and 4 passing touchdowns. He also carried the ball 3 times, and I put in quotes that he carried it for -2 yards. Jalen Waddle, decent game. 8 receptions, 144 yards, and a touchdown. Jonnu Smith, the tight end, he had 9 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown himself. On defense, Chop Robinson was the dude. He definitely did his thing. 2 pass defenses, 3 quarterback hits, and a sack and a half, and that paced the way for the Dolphins to have 4 sacks. Also, Tyler Dawson had a pick, and Drake May on the other side, 22 of 37, 230 yards, a touchdown and a pick. He also had 5 carries, 26 yards on lost fumble. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have made it. While Cole figures out what's going on with his microphone, just wanted to say my apologies for being tardy, but hope everybody out there this morning is having a great afternoon / morning, evening, whatever time day it is on your side of the country. But yes, it is it's one of those things. Sometimes, you gotta love the interwebs. Sometimes we can have some technical difficulties. Sometimes with this time of the year, our bodies can have technical difficulties too. But when it comes to football, you never know what's going to happen out here in the gridiron. But yes, Cole, it was one of those things where it sounds like you're inside of a container and you're echoing. I don't know if it was an adjustment that you had for some type of recording.
Well,
but if you were to listen to it, you would say that it sounds not like yourself. So there you go. I could hear I could hear it right there. Now you are back.
I don't know if I am, but okay.
No, there's no echo. Like it was.
Wow.
There was an echo before.
That is crazy. Okay. Well,
go back and listen to it. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. Well, let me do this properly. And now, to introduce the other co-host of this program, you know him as Mr. Commanders Grind Report. You know him as Mr. D. Will in the evening. You also know him as Mr. In or Out Sports Debate. You also know him as just simply D. Willie. Mr. Excitement himself has returned. D. Willie, Drew Willingham. What's up, man?
Hey, man, just glad to be back here on a Monday. Glad that my internet is not acting like a dumpster pelican this morning. Like I told you the other day in a text message, it does it again. I'm switching providers.
I don't blame you. Well, I was just basically just yawning through and reeling off the Dolphins' victory over the Patriots, which basically was a boring game. It was 31-0 before the fourth quarter, ended up being 34-15. I have nothing else to say except the Dolphins, they proved to 5-6. They actually are on a winning streak now, and the Patriots, they fall to 3-8. What do you have to say about this particular game?
With this game, I'd say it was like the Tua takeover game. It was one of those situations like for him to remind the division that they're on notice, and that even though he is like Mr. Potato Head when it comes to his durability, as long as he doesn't get hit, his team is taking the division. Yeah. That's what he's trying to tell everybody right now, because the past few weeks they have been lighting it up. Even if they're bad opponents or not, it's like they're on a mission. They are on a rampage. The Dolphins are, but at the same time, they have to be, because this is the only thing they can do when they have their quarterback in the game. Because when they don't have him in the game, they do not play this well. They do not have the chemistry and the flow like they do when he is playing. I'd say this is 100%, on the back of Tua. You can say whatever you want about McDaniel, but he's not the one playing the game. He can draw the plays up in the sandbox, but Tua is actually getting done. When he has 4 touchdowns in this game, like he does, throws for over 300 yards. Yes, he had -2 yards on 3 carries, but who gives an expletive? Between him and Jalen Waddle and Jonnu Smith, they were the offense on this day. Congrats to Tua. I just hope he can stay healthy.
Same. Yeah, that's the only issue I have. I just hope he can stay healthy. And here's a test. The Dolphins, they'll be playing Thursday night. They'll be headed to Lambeau. And so a short time between now and then. Hopefully things are going to go well for him. But again, the Dolphins, they look like they're looking for that number 7 spot in the AFC. Now they're 5-6. And correction, the Patriots, they're not 3-8. They are now 3-9. Jeez. Oh yeah, did I say 3-9? Yeah, I think it's time that we talk about the Giants. Oh my! Well, actually, they now will be 2-9 after their wonderful rousing performance in the Meadowlands. They taken that 30-7. To the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, 24 of 30, very efficient, actually. 294 yards. He didn't throw a touchdown, but he did not throw a pick. 4 carries, 29 yards, but he did have a so he did have a turnover. Bucky Irving, showing that he probably can take the load. Pause. 12 carries, 87 yards and a touchdown. He also had 6 receptions for 64 yards, so he had a really good day. Over 150 yards of offense by himself. The Buccaneers offense, 156 rushing yards, and 11 different receivers had at least a reception. But the Buccaneers defense, they were not to be outdone. They also notched 4 sacks of Tommy, don't call me Tony DeVito. 21 of 31, 189 yards, 7 carries for 32 yards. And the rest of the Giants, really, you don't even need to know what the heck they did. They were horrible and they were awful. And yes, for those who have been under a rock, Daniel Jones is no longer a Giant. Your thoughts on the 30-7 victory by the Buccaneers?
The one cool thing about the Buccaneers is everybody who touched the ball on the ground got a touchdown. We don't see that often. When you have more than just 2 people who rush the ball, I mean, including the quarterback. When you have more than 2 people that rush the ball and they all get a touchdown, and that was 4 combined touchdowns between 4 different people, that's a pretty cool stat. That's like team ball right there.
Right.
The one thing we cannot say that about is the New York Giants. They do not play team ball. You know the only good thing about doing this by myself last week, Cole Johnson? I didn't have to talk about the Giants. Okay? Because they were on bye.
They were on bye.
They are the only team that I know that can be on a bye and still suck. That's exactly what I was thinking last week when I was doing this on a really rare Friday. But when putting this all together, I was miserable when watching these highlights. I wanted to stab myself in the eye with a plastic spoon and then break it off inside of my eye. That's how miserable I was when I was looking at these highlights last night. And, for the Giants, I think they put Tommy, don't call me Tony, as you like to call him, in there because they knew they were guaranteed that if they put him in there, that they were going to not only look terrible, but they were going to take this and take it very, very swiftly. When it comes to the Cowboys or the Giants, I love clicking the button for them. I don't get to click it for the Cowboys today, so I had to click it for the Giants. Right here. Even though I'm still rocking the hoodie. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, we are.
But when it comes to this team, I think we're going to, over the course of the next month and a half, be clicking that button a lot. Because they are definitely going to continue this trend of going backwards. This was an ugly game. It was definitely good for the Bucs because they needed this win because the Bucs this year have not been playing like we thought they would at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, you can queue up Dennis Green if you want to, but when it comes to this, they're still 1 game under 500 in a very tough division that the Cardinals have been doing very well in for the past, few weeks. So hopefully this is a good spark for them to move onward and upward for the rest of this season. But for the Giants, we can say it's definitely not happening. They have no running game. They just have nothing over there. And the fact that you have this stat line and you only have 1 person from the Giants on there just says enough.
Yeah. It was just that bad of a performance from the Giants, and you hit the nail on the head. You can see the team just isn't one. They're not one on the field. They're not one in the front office. They're not one in the coaching staff. They're just not one. They're all in disarray. You can see it on the field, and it's horrible to watch. And I feel bad for Malik Neighbors because he's the only saving grace for the team. And yeah, they fall to 2-9. The Buccaneers, well, they're looking up at the Falcons at 6-5, but they are 5-6. So they're one game back. Unfortunately, they had to win it outright because the Bucs dropped both games to the Falcons this year. But the NFC South is still theirs for the taking. Well, speaking of the NFC South, the Carolina Panthers, they had their D-Day, or I should say they had, I guess, the opponent that they figured that they were going to have their Super Bowl against, which would be the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending two-time Super Bowl champs. They came into Charlotte, and the Chiefs didn't dominate like they normally do. They let the Panthers hang around, but Patrick Mahomes did Patrick Mahomes things at the end, and the Chiefs, usually when they have that happen, they scoot out with a victory. They scooted out of Charlotte with a 30-27 victory. Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, he was 27-37, 269 yards. He threw for 3 touchdowns. He also had 5 carries for 60 yards, including a scamper late in the game that pretty much sealed things and put them in field goal range to get that victory. Kareem Hunt, a really decent day. 16 carries, 68 yards. He also had 3 receptions for 19. But that 68 yards from Hunt and the 60 from Mahomes, that helped the Chiefs offense get a collective 165 yards on the ground. Now, the big shock to me is Spencer Schrader. No, not Harrison Butker. Of course, he has an injury. But Spencer Schaefer, who was a Jet, if I'm not mistaken, he finally got a way to get onto the field, and he kicked 3 of 3 field goals, including the game winner. Now, for the hard luck losing Panthers, Bryce Young, decent effort, 21-35, 263 yards and a touchdown. He also had 3 carries for 20 yards. David Moore, not to be confused with DJ Moore, 6 receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown. We had a Jadeveon Clowney sighting. Yes, 2 tackles for losses, 3 quarterback hits, and a sack and a half. And that sack and a half paced the Panthers' effort on defense to getting 5 sacks on Patrick Mahomes. And Eddie Pinheiro, he had 4 field goals. All right, your thoughts on this surprisingly close contest between the Chiefs and the Panthers?
Yes, this was one of my biggest surprises from this past weekend. You look at this defense of the Carolina Panthers, who did what they did and, were effective against this Kansas City team. It's like you said, 5 sacks. Eddie Pinheiro is now the, most accurate kicker in the NFL when you look at the big tales of woe with Justin Tucker this year for the Ravens. Right. So that's the only bright spot that they have going for them right now is special teams from what it seems like. And to add to that layer, you have to look at Johnny Hecker, the punter over there, who's a former Super Bowl champion from the Rams, who's been the punter for the Panthers the past few seasons. He had a couple of decent punts yesterday, and especially one inside the 20 that pinned the Chiefs back that made a difference in that second half. So looking at this for what it was, I would say the biggest impacts of the day were not only defense, but special teams. And you said some good things about Bryce Young. He didn't turn the ball over is the most important stat for me, is that he did not do that. And when you're playing against the Chiefs, who this year, who have been more dangerous on defense than on offense, when you have Chris Jones leading the way, I'd say this is a huge step forward in the Panthers, for the Panthers. Like, their season is screwed this year. I mean, they're not going to be able to turn it around in time this year. But this should at least tell you, maybe Bryce Young is not totally a bust. Maybe if we have better people on the offensive line who aren't human turnstiles like we've been talking about all season long, then they might have a chance. Because even though the Chiefs is the Chiefs, they can be beatable. Okay, so and it came close to it in this past game. And
Yeah.
for those of us who maybe are not Swifties out here in these streams, would have loved to see them take their second consecutive. Unfortunately, we'll never know because they did not get served that. And I will not click it a second time in a row. But we did get to see 2 times in a row. But in our head, we got close enough to it. But I want to give a shout out on this day, not only to the defense of the Panthers, but to their special teams, because without them stepping up, this game would not have been as close as it was.
Agreed. And yes, definitely with punting, it always focuses on field position, and that's pretty much why the punter is on the team, is to help the defense out, to have the opposing offense have to march down the field as far as they need to be. That was key because, I think that is what got the Panthers in the game and they didn't get routed. But unfortunately, it still took the L. They dropped to 3-8. They still might, though, win the NFC South. Woo. With a 3-8 record. Wow. Because they're only 3 games back of the division lead. But the Chiefs, they don't have such worries. They now notched their record to 10-1. And now they, along with the Lions, they're looking for the playoff clinching game, which should be very soon for the both of them.
I was going to add one more thing.
Sir.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, just because you're not mathematically eliminated yet, doesn't mean you're not eliminated. Look at the Jets. All right. I rest my case.
I will 100% agree with you. Yeah, Jesse's is over.
It's not even over it. Aaron Rodgers already talking about, we'll come back for 2025, but not with the Jets.
Mm-hmm. And now you know why I have the opinion that I have about him. Goodness gracious.
I will never question you again.
My gosh, I mean, geez, Aaron Rodgers. Anyway. Father God, in the name of Jesus, thank you for not having the Jets play yesterday. Sorry.
I thought you were going to say thank you for not letting my co-host be a Jets fan.
Well, I would say that, but since we have a mutual friend, I don't want to just pile on and say
Ryan doesn't count.
Thank you.
Because Ryan
doesn't
want to be a Jets fan anymore, I don't think.
Ryan is too decent of a human being where I would pile on him like that. Oh my gosh. But you do raise a good point. Going to the Sunday afternoon games. The Raiders, they hosted the Broncos. It almost is like do we really have to play this game type of feel. But the Broncos, they basically just let the Raiders have their way in the first half, and they're like, oh, this is all you have? And then they just boat raced the rest of the way. 29-19 was the final score. Bo Nix, who seems to have found his footing in his rookie season, seems to get incrementally better and better by each start. 25 of 42, 273 yards, 2 touchdowns, carrying 5 yards. And just like you mentioned with Bryce Young, I'll mention it with Bo Nix, 0 turnovers. So he is actually taking care of the ball pretty well, and he is leading the team in a substantial fashion. Cortland Sutton, who he's started to come on as of late, 8 receptions, 97 yards, and both of those Bo Nix touchdowns. Devon Vele had 6 receptions for 80 yards himself. But, of course, the reason why the Broncos are where they are now, it's that defense. 7 passes defended, 10 quarterback hits, and 5 sacks. There was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 6 different people that you actually had a sack total for. That is crazy. Brennan Jones, he had a pick. And Will Lutz, of course, he was basically the guy scoring most of the points for them. 5 field goals of 5 attempts. He had a long of 54 yards. And then we get to the hard part of this whole game. Gardner Minshew, 25-42, 230 yards, a touchdown, a pick, 2 carries of 5 yards, and a possible messed up collarbone. So, yeah, he unfortunately had to get out the game. The Raiders offense, they ended up throwing for 300 yards as a collective. Jacoby Myers, who he seems to have good games every now and then. He had a good one in this one. 10 receptions, 121 yards. Trey Tucker had a decent one as well. 7 receptions for 82 yards. And Daniel Carson, he didn't make 5 field goals, but he had made 4. And this long from 53. Your thoughts on the Broncos? Looks like they're continuing their winning ways.
Well, besides the leading rusher for the Las Vegas Raiders, I'd say the only thing that was sincere in this game was the fact that the Raiders got served there. Because in this divisional matchup, Bo Nix was on fire. We got to, you said like Bryce Young, he didn't turn the ball over, but let's remember through 12 games, Bo Nix has got 16 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions, which is really good as a rookie.
Yeah.
Looking, even though we've got 1 extra game in a season now, we're 3/4 of the way through a season at this point still, in my opinion. Because, especially with Thanksgiving, just a few days away.
Right.
So with a rookie having 10 more touchdowns and interceptions, I'd say that's one expletive of a season. And especially for Sean Payton, in the fact that you are 2 games over 500 at this point.
Yep.
With what, 4 or 5 games left, 5 games left to play. So absolutely one great turnaround for the Denver Broncos this year. And you don't get that out of a lot of rookies besides this team. We're seeing it out of the Commanders. Right. That's about it. As far as, teams that have rookie quarterbacks that are on the positive upswing. Because other teams like the Bears, and then you could look at last year with the Panthers, it's just not working that fast of a turnaround for the team. So big on the Broncos for what they're doing. This was also big as it was a division win. So help them out when it comes to playoffs and when it comes to the end of the year. But in the past 3 games against the Raiders, the Falcons, and the Chiefs, Bo Nix has 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That's I wouldn't say he's elite yet, but he's playing next level when you compare him to average rookies in 3 straight games, especially when you're looking at the caliber of teams that he's playing. Raiders, you can put question marks there, but the Falcons and the Chiefs, Falcons maybe not as serious as the Chiefs, but he did that in a loss to the Chiefs. So he put up 115.3 passer rating against the Chiefs, 145 passer rating against the Falcons, and a 94.6 is not as stellar as those other numbers, but he still did a great job. So this season is definitely the positivity of it. The fact that they are in a winning position at this point is more so, I would say, from the quarterback position than anywhere else, because you saw the 2 years with Russell Wilson, it wasn't working. It's somehow working in Pittsburgh, but they've got a better caliber team around him. In Denver, the most impactful position that they needed help with was the quarterback, because it's the most influential position for that organization, as to where the Steelers are more well-rounded in all 3 phases. They needed that help over there in the quarterback position. They got it, and it's all paying dividends right now.
You hit the nail on the head for what I was going to say. To me, I took notice about Bo Nix and his development. It was that Arrowhead loss in KC to the Chiefs, because that had 0 to do with Nix, because he actually put the team in position to make a winnable field goal. So that's when I said, okay, I think this guy, he made a couple of nice throws too against that Chiefs defense in that game. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to have to really look out for this guy. Yeah, Bo Nix, his improvement is great, and I agree, and you made a really good point. Yeah, he may have like 5 games left, but the sample size we've seen thus far, wonderful. Could not have asked for him to do much more than he's done. So yes, kudos to you, Bo. Kudos to you. And that defense is actually helping them out as well. They improved to 7-5, and they're looking for that number 7 spot. I would say they're looking for the AFC West Championship, but the Chiefs are rolling too hard. But they're looking for a wild card spot.
Plus,
and they might get it.
Plus, he's the only quarterback since Cortland Sutton has came to the team that's been able to unlock his talent, really. If you look at what they've done together this season,
you're right.
Cortland Sutton's having the best year as a Bronco, in my opinion, this year, and it's because of Bo Nix. Not because of the coaching, but because of the quarterback that's throwing the ball.
Right. Yeah, and that is vastly important. Vastly important. And we see you all in the tribe. We love you guys.
Coffee.
Yes, and we did talk about you, my man, in a flattering fashion. The Raiders, they fall to 2-9, which is unfortunate, and maybe they're tanky for Shador. Who knows? But their season, like we talked about the Jets, the Raiders, it's over. They eliminated. And there may be another team that they may have to say the same, although their record is not quite as bad. The San Francisco 49ers. They went to Lambeau Field, the not frozen yet tundra of Lambeau Field, to play against the Packers. And the Packers, they really were playing. They were like children playing with food. They really did not take the 49ers seriously. And they just eased their way to a 38-10 victory. Jordan Love, unimpressive, but he did what he needed to do. 13-23, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, a carry and 2 yards. And on the side, his receivers are not doing him any favors, and he's not doing his own self favors because he was forcing a couple of those throws, and his receivers were dropping some beautiful dimes. But Josh Jacobs, he was the guy in this game. 26 carries, 106 yards, and not 1, not 2, but 3 rushing touchdowns. The Packers offense, with that 106 rushing yards from Jacobs, and yes, even the 2 from Jordan Love, they had a robust 169 yards on the ground. On defense, we're saying the name again, Xavier McKinney. He had yet another interception in this affair. And he had an interception of not Brock Purdy. He was out in this game. Brandon Allen took his place. Decent, but not all that great. 17-29, 199 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He also had 2 carries of 5 yards and a nasty looking. Oh man, that fumble's nasty. George Kittle, or as a colleague of ours will call him, George the Animal Kittle. 6 receptions, 82 yards, and a touchdown. And on defense, Leonard Floyd, who seemed to be the only spark on defense they had, 4 solo tackles, 2 tackles for losses, 2 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks of Jordan Love. Your thoughts on the Packers literally yawning their way to a victory over the 49ers?
You know, like you said, one team was playing with their food. I think the other team was just playing in traffic. Because that's what it felt like when watching this game on Fox. It's so bad. It was so bad. When you watch it, I was like, this is so terrible. Look out for your kids. Because this is absolutely terrible. Looking back at this game, except for the 1 touchdown pass that Brandon Allen threw that I happened to turn the game back on in that moment. So I was flipping back and forth between a few things. I thought Josh Allen had suited up because he was wearing 17. He had Allen. He threw a touchdown. Other than that, the imposter was out of the uniform at that point shortly after that because that's all that he was able to muster up on this day. Like I told our colleague before, needs to come up with a more original nickname for George Kittle because he is not an animal. George the Animal Steel was the legit animal who was named George. Please stop ruining my fanhood with wrestling. Okay? Because I am a huge wrestling fan. I have my own championship belt for my brand on my hat. Okay? Please stop ruining wrestling by calling him George the Animal Kittle because it is not legit. And he and I have had this conversation before, which I can clip it out from an old show we did and click that button. But here and now, when it comes to this, the 49ers are falling apart. They've been falling apart
Yeah.
this year, even before Purdy got hurt recently. You know,
Mhm.
they, like the Bucks, are one game under 500, which is
Correct.
very underwhelming at this point.
Mhm.
When we were talking about how much of a chance they had to go to the Super Bowl
Yep.
again and win it, and especially those who are 49ers fans who are still riding way too high on them when they're winning games. But when they're losing games, they're pointing the finger in other directions except for where they really need to point it. And it's not solely with the quarterback position here
No.
because Purdy's hurt. It has to do with the running attack. Even though McCaffrey just came back recently from injury, they don't
Mhm.
have anybody else that's that reliable over there because Mason had a flash in the pan when he first took over for McCaffrey at the beginning of the year. But since week 2 or week 3, he's been very
Mhm.
quiet. And he hasn't been consistent. When you look at what he's doing, if he was supposed to be the number 2 solid back for McCaffrey, he would have more than just 3 carries for 8 yards. The
That's
Packers
the point.
defense is pretty good,
Mhm.
but they're not that good to be able to.
Especially against the run. They're not
Yes,
that good.
yes, to hold you to 16 carries for 44 yards
Mhm.
between 3 different rushers, even though your
Yeah.
quarterback had 2 of those 5, 2
Mhm.
carries for 5 of those yards. Your number 1 and your number 2 running backs combined for 14 carries for 39 yards. That's absolutely terrible. The highlight, yes, was Kittle. He had the touchdown.
Mhm.
He had 82 yards, did it on
Mhm.
6 receptions. But other than that, Juwan Jennings was the next person up who had 1 less catch with 42 less yards. So,
Right.
their defense definitely, was falling apart against this Packers team too. But I give them a little bit of a break because, and especially with who they played, because the Packers have had a very quiet 8-3 year. Them and the Vikings both in that division, they've been slept on. They really have been slept on a lot for this year. So we need to start taking the Packers and Vikings more seriously after their wins this past weekend because they are still at the top of the NFC and at the top of the NFL altogether.
Yeah, the reason why I criticized the Packers and saying they were playing with their food with the 49ers is because I really believe they had the talent, especially with a backup quarterback for the 49ers is playing. And I think they could have done this with Purdy as a starter, personally. I just think that they're hungrier. And to the 49er collective, I felt that you all had a chance to go to the Super Bowl because I figured that the 49ers were feeling that this would be with the present team constituted as they are now, this would be their last best shot unless you actually had to do like the 94 team did and go in the free agent market and pick a few free agents to supplement the talent you have on the team. Otherwise, I figured that this downward spiral was going to happen starting next year, but these injuries are starting to pile up and it's starting to happen now. Well, they dropped to 5-6. The Packers, and I agree with I 100% wholeheartedly agree with Drew on this. They improved to 8-3. And right now, I think they're the most dangerous 8-3 non-division leading team in the NFL at the moment because when they are on, it is hard to stop them, and they're on right now. So, I feel for the rest of the NFC because they can play spoiler for many a team down the stretch. And we go to the NFC West, where the NFC West leading Cardinals coming into the game. We're playing the 5-5 Seattle Seahawks. Unfortunately, it just wasn't happening for the Cardinals. They drop a very, very boring game to Seahawks 16-6. Geno Smith, uneven performance, 22 of 31, 254 yards. He had a touchdown. He did throw an interception. He also had 3 carries for 2 yards. On defense, Leonard Williams, he had 3 tackles for losses, 1 pass defense, 1 quarterback hit, and 2.5 sacks. He had half of the Seahawks' 5 sacks on the day. Oh, and so bad that, the defense had to get in on the action. And on a 4th and 1, and I really feel like slapping Kyler Murray in the face with this. He decided to just simply shot put a pass into the waiting arms of Kobe Bryant, not to be confused with Kobe Bean Bryant, for a 69-yard pick six. Oh my gosh. And then we get to Kyler Murray, who I've been raving about him the last few weeks because he's been taking care of the ball. He's been doing things that I would actually like to see from him. And then he does that. But otherwise, he had a 24 or 37 passing day for 285 yards, no touchdowns, and that pick six that I mentioned. He also carried the ball twice for 9 yards. Jeremy Bright was his guy on the receiving end, 12 receptions, 133 yards, and not to be outdone, the Cardinals defense, they themselves put Geno Smith to the turf 5 times. Oh, and Garrett Williams also had a pick. Your thoughts on the Seahawks resting first place in the NFC West away from the Cardinals?
Well, shout out to our guy Mickey Delaney for picking up the dub. For want to get that off the out the way, because he is here. And I figured that one of those comments were coming at some point. Because he wanted to throw some shade with the Cowboys. We haven't quite got to that game yet, Mick. Turn it back and reel it back down a little bit.
All right. Yeah, I saw that shade.
You had to say this. This game would have absolutely been terrible had it not been for that shot put pass to Kobe Bryant. Because all they were doing were kicking field goals throughout this game until Kobe Bryant ran that 69-yard interception back for the pick six. So now that we were talking and putting the praise on the Cardinals for they're not running away with this division. They're not out of it yet because they're still allowing everybody else to be in it after what we saw with now the Seahawks getting that division win against them. What we saw with the loss to the 49ers, there's multiple teams here that are struggling, throughout this playoffs. And I've got to say, not the playoffs this season, and it's like Sick was saying with the 49ers earlier, they've had a dismal year. The Cardinals, the Seahawks, everybody in that division is having a dismal year because the fact that we're looking at how bad the Cardinals team was last year, and they have 5 losses at this point in the year, and they still are at the top of the division, just goes to show how bad a shape the division is altogether. But the Cardinals still need a few more weapons around them because, I mean, besides Trey McBride, who else do they really have over there? I know Marvin Harrison Jr. was highly touted coming out of college, but he hasn't completely lived up to the hype of what we thought he would be at this point. He was reconstructing all the NIL deal stuff, and what did it get him? Absolutely nothing. Because he's not. He had 3 catches in this game for 47 yards, and that's about it. James Conner is supposed to be your number 1 running back, and he had 7 carries for 8 yards. So I would say that this game right here, even though Kyler Murray had a turnover and it made an impact, I'd say that their lack of running has been why they've lost 5 games so far this year. And they have got to figure that out, and they have got to turn that around if they want to be a serious team in the future. They're not going to be a serious team in 2024. If they make the playoffs, they will be one and done. And that is my call for the Cardinals. And this is the reason why right here you cannot run the ball. The Seahawks, on the other hand, very similar story, which is why this game was as close as it was. Kenneth Walker III, 16 carries, very good number, but 41 yards, averaging 2.6 yards per run. Just not good at all. And behind him, Zach Charbonnet had 6 carries for 22 yards. It's not good at all. So this game would have been a little bit more. They would have been able to pull a little bit more ahead had they been able to establish the run too, and had Geno not also thrown an interception. I'd say the tale of this game and why it was such a low-scoring contest, and the fact that it was close, was because neither team had a running attack, and neither team could take care of the ball consistently because they were both turning the ball over, and the defenses capitalized on it. So, I want to see a little bit more production out of DK Metcalf as well for this Seahawks team if they're going to want to take this division over the course of the next month and some change. DK Metcalf needs to step it up. Jackson Smith and Najigba did his job, but it's DK Metcalf's job to be the number 1 guy. and he has not felt like the number one guy consistently throughout this year. Shout out to Kobe Bryant as well for doing what he did. And shout out to special teams for the Seahawks, because if it was not for the punter, Michael Dixon, getting 3 of his 5 punts inside the 20, that's also what made a difference in this game too. Do what?
I said this game wouldn't have been 16-6.
No, it would not have been. They would have been able to pull it. They would have not been as close as they were had it not been for that. So the Cardinals would have scored a few more points. It may have been a few more field goals,
right?
But they still would have lost by like a point. But I also put that on the fact that the punter from the Seahawks pinned them inside the 20, not once, but twice, but 3 times. And people who don't watch football consistently or watch all 3 phases to understand it don't really grasp the fact of how important the punter is in situations like that, pinning them inside the 20, because it's a lot of green when you got to go 80 plus yards. And that's exactly what happened in this game, because they knew that they couldn't run the ball. So let's pin them back inside the 20.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like what Herm Edwards said one time. He said, look, I don't care what it is. It does not matter. And he told the offense this all the time. He says, I want every possession to end in a kick, whether that would be a point after touchdown, a field goal, or a punt. I want every possession to end in a kick. And basically meaning don't turn the ball over, and we'll play the field position game if the offense is not connecting plays in the dots and marching, or as the late great Hank Strand would say, matriculating the ball down the field. Yes, the punting game is huge, and you need to have that, especially if your offense isn't clicking. But both teams are 6-5. The Seahawks improved to 6-5. The Cardinals dropped to 6-5. And due to this game, the Cardinals now are in second place. The Seahawks rise to the number 1 spot in the NFC West. And to show you how bad things are, it is quite possible that the winner of this division can have the number 3 seed in the playoffs.
I think it's guaranteed, though, that no matter who wins this division, whether it's the wild card or not, you're taking the. Got him.
But yes, the NFC South and NFC West, they are going to be battling for the number 3 seed if they win it. But yes, that is a guiding moment, because they might be ousted by a wild card round team. Oh my gosh! All right, to the Sunday night game. I'm sorry. So we saw a game between the Eagles and the Rams. There were 21 other players on the field, and Saquon Barkley decided to say, 37-20. The game wasn't that close because the last 6 points of the Rams scored was within the last 2 minutes. Jalen Hurts, congratulations, sir. I think you're starting to get the memo. You're taking care of the ball. 15-22, 179 yards and a touchdown. You're still carrying the ball a little too much for my liking. 12 carries for 39 yards. I'll get to the player of the game and probably player of the week later. A.J. Brown, 6 receptions, 109 yards, and a wonderful touchdown. Give you a lesson on how you actually supposed to drag your feet when you actually have a catch. So kudos to you with that touchdown catch, A.J. Brown. On defense, Milton Williams, the defense was active. Milton Williams, 3 tackles for losses, 3 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks. He paced the way for the Eagles defense to have 8 total tackles for losses, 11 quarterback hits, and 5 sacks of poor old Matthew Stafford. Jake Elliott, decent pedestrian day, 3 of 3 from field goals. But the longest was, I think, for like 30 some odd yards. Matthew Stafford, I just mentioned him, 24-36, 243 yards and a couple touchdowns. He did have a carry for 15 yards as well. Puka Nacua, pretty good day, 9 receptions for 117 yards, but the day belonged to Saquon Barkley. He had 4 receptions for 47 yards, but he had 26 carries, and this is not a misnomer, for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. And yes, and if you do the math, ladies and gentlemen, 255 yards on the ground, 47 yards in the air, he accounted for 302 of the Eagles' yards by himself. That's right, 302 yards of offense by Saquon Barkley. Oh, by the way, the Eagles' offense, they amassed 316 yards on the ground. Your thoughts on the Eagles, speaking of children playing with food, basically just playing with the Rams in the first half, and then they decided, oh, let's get the ball in Saquon Barkley's hands. In the second half, it just was all Eagles.
Shout out to Jake Elliott for not missing a field goal this week.
True.
He missed multiple field goals last week.
Last
I think
week.
He went 2 of 4 last week.
Right.
He missed 2 in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were just talking about that last week on here and on CGR. And shout out to Dante for being in the comments there, for us as well. Of course, let me bring this up there. Yes, you should be thanking them every day, as it is the thankful part of the year. You are thankful for things, and this is exactly what you, as a fan of the team, are thankful for this week.
I would think him too. Yeah,
because he's what he's brought to you now. What you should not be thankful for is Kenny Pickett, because he had 2 carries for -2 yards. Yes, I'm going to bring that up because you have to look at one negative part in this game. Kenny Pickett needs to go. He is like the toxic water you do not drink from the tap because it will give you diarrhea. Kenny Pickett is nothing but diarrhea. Now, other than that,
he just performed kneel downs. Oh, my God.
I don't care. I don't care. He took him wrong. He should have kneeled forward. He didn't. He wasn't kneeling properly for me. So yes, that is why I'm giving him shade today. You kneel forward, Kenny Pickett. I don't care if you get hurt just because you kneeled forward. You need to do it because it's the right thing for Kenny Pickett to do. All right, now all the shenanigans aside, because I had to bring it in this morning. All right. This game right here was absolutely video game when it comes to rushing, because you can't even do this in Madden. I've tried. I did get the new Madden last week because I wanted to play it, because I wanted to have a quarterback for my franchise for the first time that actually was good in the Madden 20s era, besides RG3. But yes, was playing a little bit with that. And I got to say, even I played a game with the Eagles, and I played a game with the Ravens, because I wanted to see just rushing styles the other day. I was messing around, and I can't even get more than 140 yards out of Saquon. For him to run for 255 rushing yards, it's like, what, 60-some yards a quarter in order to make that possible? That's absolutely insane video game-esque numbers. That's like Steph Curry going video game in the 73-9 season for the Golden State Warriors. You couldn't even do that in 2K for the video game. So looking at it for what it is, yes, Dante, you need to be thanking the Giants every single day, thinking, oh, yeah, he's going to come on back. Just like he said in Hard Knocks, he's going to come on back and re-sign. Nobody's going to give him that money. Wrong. The Eagles did, and now their season is paying dividends, because I said it last week. Once the Eagles beat the Commanders in that Thursday night game, that was like them taking the division officially for 2024, and they're not going to let it go. The only way the Commanders are going to make the playoffs is if they make the wild card, which luckily now there's 3 wild card spots instead of 2. So there's still a chance for them to make the playoffs. And even if you're a wild card team, you have a chance to make a dent and ruin somebody's season. So I will say this, at least for the Eagles, they're going to be the top of the division, and they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to get a home game. They're not going to be the number 1 team, though, because there's nobody knocking off the Lions at this point, in my opinion. But when it comes to what you're seeing out of this team right here, you should be very excited, because I feel like now that this Eagles team is starting to get on a roll, they're better than what they were 2 years ago. They're better than what they were when Bradbury had the PI call in the end zone, and people were flipping out about that, and people are still crying like little babies over that call. But hey, at least you still got a Super Bowl there over there in Philly. But looking at it for what it is, you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about Jalen Hurts not turning the ball over. He finally learned not to turn the ball over, and that you don't have to throw it so many times in the game. You didn't even have 200 passing yards.
But that's
you only
fine.
had one passing touchdown, but you had no turnovers. Kenny Pickett went backwards more than you did in this game. So for what it was, this was the Saquon Barkley rushing game. It's going to be very, very tough to pick the MVP this year. Not only what he's doing, but Derrick Henry. And you also have to look at the fact of where the team is in positioning in comparison, because of what Saquon's doing. And they can go further as a team than I believe what the Ravens will do with Derrick Henry, because at the end of the day, Lamar is still going to be Lamar. And when you have to put the ball in his hands and force him to pass instead of run, that's a big, big recipe for disaster still over there in Baltimore, as to where if you hand the ball off to Saquon 20 plus times in a day, you're going to most likely get the win.
This is what you get.
So, yeah, exactly. So keep handing the ball off to him. Eagles fans, keep being thankful. Just ease up on my team a little bit. Other than that, we're good.
Well, they do play the Commanders in Washington, I think, sometime next month. So, well, yeah, we'll see then. Dante, this to me, I think if the Eagles are actually going to have a chance to go back to the Super Bowl, to me, the defensive line is going to have to be the unit that does it. And if Milton Williams can play that stud type of defense behind the efforts of Jalen Carter, I like their chances better. And yes, I do think Saquon Barkley is well within the MVP talk conversation, because the Eagles are not 9-2 unless Saquon Barkley is carrying the ball the way he is. It's not even a question. Not even a question. And because of that, he actually fits the acronym perfectly, because he is the most valuable player in the Eagles. Hands down, not even a question, by far. And I'm actually glad he's on the Eagles, because he makes the team more dangerous. They more than likely will have the number 2 seed, which means that guarantees them 2 home playoff games in the playoffs. And if someone knocks off the Lions, which I doubt, it would make it 3. But they're in the fight for the number 2 spot. They're going to seal that, and they're going to get it.
I do want to address one thing while we're on the topic of this game, and it's a comment that Dante just said 2 minutes ago, saying that MVP is Saquon. This is where it's very tough for people who have top 3 or top 5 players in a league to be judges without being biased. Okay, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but I am going to say this: you got to look at Derrick Henry. But my big person to throw out there for the MVP race right now is Josh Allen, because of what he's been doing over there in Buffalo. All right. You cannot take that away from him. And it's going to be between those 3, in my opinion. It's going to be between Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, and Saquon. Now, Saquon keeps having games like these. You cannot take it away from him. Okay. I'm going to give you that. But right now, at this point in the season, it's not over yet.
All right, to buffer your point, Saquon's efforts, I think, got him to 1,300 yards. I think, I forget where Henry is, but I think he's like about 1,002 or around there. So, yeah, you have that. To me, those are the 3. It's Saquon, because now I will say this: last night's game put him in the top 3 for me. I'll say even 4. Saquon, Josh Allen, Derrick Henry. I'll throw in, for 4 and 5, I'll throw in Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff. But I say they're 4 and 5 because I think Lamar, they're like, okay, we've given you the award twice. More than likely, we got to find someone else worthy. So I think he, for 2 reasons, will suffer getting MVP votes. You have that because he's won it twice, and Derrick Henry's on your team, and he's the reason why you're actually having the stats you are. So I think that's what's going to hurt eventually Derrick Henry being the MVP, because I think Lamar Jackson's going to take some votes away from him too. So yeah, I'm not going to argue. the best performance of the season, definitely on the run. Saquon Barkley last night, and that is an MVP worthy performance, no question. And Dante said he's on the verge of 2,000 plus all-purpose yards, and he might be 2,000 yards on the ground too. He's the leads NFL in rushing now. He does, and and Baltimore still has and Baltimore still has a bye. So yeah, true, but it's not a slam dunk though. I would love to say it is, but it's not. But go ahead.
Let's look at this though for the 2024 season, right? Mm-hmm. So far, Derrick Henry has about 1,200 rushing yards, 13 rushing touchdowns. And when it comes to receiving, he's got 10 receptions for 96 yards and an additional 2 rushing touchdowns. Now,
Barkley would have it
when we look at Saquon,
in receiving. Yeah.
Say that again?
I said Saquon will probably have it over him in receiving for sure.
Yes, that's where they differ, because Saquon has 1,392 rushing yards, only 10 rushing touchdowns, but he does have an additional 17 catches, which is 27 receptions for 257 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So the only thing that he's really got him on right now is he's got like an extra 200 receiving yards, but Derrick Henry has got the same amount of touchdowns as far as receiving touchdowns. He's got 3 more rushing touchdowns, and he's only about 170 to 180 yards behind him. What we need to really look at here, because what position has been favored the most in all MVP races for the most part?
QB.
Exactly. And that is why we have to throw this guy's name in the hat, because right now, at this point in the regular season, Josh Allen's got over 2,500 passing yards, 18 passing touchdowns to 5 interceptions. It's not astronomical numbers, but they're efficient when you look at what he's doing, and you have to at least keep him in the conversation because he's got about a 99% rating QBR, which is still very good. And you look at what the team's doing, and I think that, in my opinion, if I were voting, I'd say team success from that position where you're at makes a big difference. So,
especially quarterback, it matters. Yeah.
Yes, because it's the number 1 leader. So if the Bills keep playing the way they are, they don't lose a game for the rest of this season.
It might be a moot point there. Yeah.
I think Josh Allen wins it that way.
Yeah, it might be a moot point there. The only person that I think they might steal it from him is Jared Goff, but he would have to have
not after that 5 interception game.
No. I was going to say the only way he could do it would be him if he were to basically have another one of those games like he had against the Seahawks, where he just simply couldn't miss a person and he throws for like 400 yards. I mean, if he just goes on a tear like that. But I 100% agree with you. That 5 interception game in Houston, I think that will damage his cause a lot. And that's a shame, because that's the only bad game he's played all year. But look, kudos to the Eagles. I think Dante, and you would probably know better than me, I think Nick Sirianni has it now. I think he understands the bread is buttered with Saquon Barkley. And if you get Saquon to just simply cook and be physical on offense and just turn the game over to that defensive front of the Eagles, I think Nick Sirianni has the formula. And hopefully he gets it and he rides it all the way to January. They're 92. More than likely, they'll be resting the 2 seed away from people. Of course, they fight for the number 1 seed in the NFC. I don't think they'll get there. I think they will easily clinch the NFC East. That won't be an issue. Meanwhile, the Rams, they fall to 5-6. Ooh, but they looked bad last night. Jeez, they looked bad. Ooh. They got steamrolled. Rams defense, communicate. It's not a crime. Oh, and I'm going to say this again for another team. It's not a crime to actually say who you have and who you don't, because you just can't have 2 big gashed runs like what you had with Saquon ever. Wow, that's just horrible. And now, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, it's time for the upset of the week. Oh, and Dante, I've said this: Sierra has to win the Super Bowl, otherwise his job is done. I agree with you, sir. He has to win the Super Bowl, otherwise he's gone, and he should be gone. And I hate to say it like that, but he should be gone because I think he handicaps the team that much. But Houston, yes, NRG Stadium. The Texans, they hosted the Titans, the 7-4 Texans. They came off of their 34-10 beatdown of the Cowboys, 250 miles north, and they welcomed their biggest arch rival, and they wet the bed. Well, no, they didn't wet the bed. They crapped the bed. This is an example of a team rolling their helmets onto the field and thinking because they have a much better record, they beat the team just on mere fact that they are on the presence of the field. 32-27 was the final score. The Titans, they defeated the Texans, and this was an ugly game in terms of efficiency and in execution on both sides of the ball. Will Levis, 18-24, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns. You'd say, well, that sort of defeats your purpose of what you just said. 1 interception from him, 8 carries, 10 yards, and so yes, even Will Levis in the win had 2 turnovers. Tony Pollard, 24 carries, 119 yards, and a touchdown. He had 3 receptions for 10 yards. Calvin Ridley had a pretty good game, 5 receptions, 93 yards in the air. The Titans defense, they put C.J. Stroud to the ground 4 times. Kenneth Murray, he had a pick. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. had a pick as well. And Nick Folk, 3 of 3. Pretty good effort from him. He had a long of 56 yards in the game. And we get to the Texans. C.J. Stroud, horrible, if uneven. 20 of 33, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He also had 3 carries for 18 yards. He had a lost fumble. He had a forced fumble, but he didn't lose the game. He didn't lose the fumble. Nico Collins, he had 5 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown. The only bright spot offensively for the Texans. Danielle Hunter, who seems to be coming on defense, I'm loving the effort from him. And this is what makes me sick to my stomach. Not him. The effort I'm about to put forth. 6 solo tackles, 5 tackles for losses, 3 quarterback hits, and 3 sacks. Will Anderson Jr., 2 tackles for losses, 2 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks. The Texas defense as a whole, because of Hunter and Anderson, 13 tackles for losses, 9 quarterback hits, and 8 sacks. And the effort got wasted. And yeah, I could tout that Jimmy Ward with that interception that Will Levis threw, it was a pick 6 from 65 yards. But I can put the game in Kaimi Fairbairn's leg. He was 2 of 3. He had a long of 54, and the fact that the 54-yard field goal he made him the kicker that has made the most field goals from 50 yards in a season in NFL history, with 12 in a season, not ever in a season. But he missed a gimme 28-yard field goal. Oh, and by the way, C.J. Stroud sealed the game with a safety with 1 minute to go. Your thoughts on a horrible game, and I'm not talking about from a Texas standpoint. I'm just talking about from a horrible game from execution standpoint, with the Titans notching a 32-27 victory over the Texans.
There's multiple factors into why this game ended the way that it did, and just to make you feel a little bit better, this game would have been far worse of a win for the Titans had it not been for the punter that you signed during this offseason.
Correct.
Because Townsend, out of his 5 punts, 4 of them were inside the 20.
Correct.
Which contained them, because that's how you got a couple of those turnovers off of Will Levis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one big stat line I wanted to bring into this, was that Fairbairn missing one was big. But I would say C.J. Stroud's 2 interceptions and that safety played a big part in this, the way that it went too.
Mm-hmm.
The most motivational factor into why this game did a complete 180 for this team, though, is the fact that they could not get Joe Mixon going. Like the fact that he had 14 carries for 22 yards.
Every time he carried the ball, he was running to a brick wall. Yeah.
This, besides our next game that we're going to talk about, was like was my biggest disappointment of the day.
Mhm.
Because when you see every single week, it hasn't been to the way that the Texans, not the Texans, but the Ravens have gotten out of Henry, or in our previous matchup that we just talked about, the Eagles have gotten out of Saquon. But the Texans have gotten positive production out of Joe Mixon since they've acquired him from the Bengals. Okay,
You're correct, sir.
Not to the level of the other two teams, but you can arguably say he, out of the past couple of years, he's the third best running back acquisition in free agent market trade, whatever you want to say, when it comes to off-season moves.
And where you're going is going to be correct too.
And if they cannot get reestablish this with him before the end of the year, they're not going to be making any type of run in the playoffs. And what they've
100.
been giving us, as far as putting what they put on display this year, they've been very inconsistent with their overall offense, which is why they are in the position they are in right now. So, they are still looking good statistically when it comes to their record. They're still 2 games over 500.
Right.
I'm not trying to throw shade on the Texans, because since we started this show and since we saw what we saw in 2023, I've done nothing but thrown praise at this. But the one thing that's hurt them, especially this year, is their inconsistencies on offense, because defense, we already knew what to expect out of them. They're up and they're down, but they are not the defense wasn't what sent them to the playoffs last year.
Right.
Helping contain things over there and not giving up too many points, of course, yes.
Right.
But, they were still scoring more points than they were giving up, so it was okay. This year, they've been inconsistent on offense in multiple phases, to where when we get to this point in the game, very end, when the pressure's on, you end up taking a safety. Like, I know they had your pen back there, but you got to look at it for what it is. And the Titans punter on the day, who was Ryan Stonehouse, he had the same amount of punts as Townsend, but he only pinned you inside the 20 twice, and one of those did happen to be at the end. So I get that, but you had more opportunities as the Texans on the other side. I think that this goes down to the lack of exercising I would say this comes down to the lack of taking advantage of opportunities for the Texans and just practically giving it away to the Titans, because the Titans, even though they're not mathematically eliminated, they're just like the Jets. And they're just like the Giants. They're eliminated, okay?
Yeah,
Stop
they are
giving them freebies.
They are,
because they don't deserve it. Will Levis sure doesn't deserve it. And you made him, I wouldn't say look like Tom Brady, but you made him look like he was an average quarterback, and Will Levis is not an average quarterback.
They made him look close, though. Yeah. As a fan, this is what really just irked me. And I get that sometimes you just can't just trot your defense out and expect them to stop offenses every single time. I get that. And you hit the nail on the head. The offense, to me, is the issue. The offensive line is the biggest of issues, because it's either they hurt themselves with penalties, needless penalties at that, unforced penalties. And I'm not talking about holding. I'm talking about false starts. I'm talking about lining up wrong. I mean, just procedural penalties. And they keep having them. If it's not that, and you saw it with the safety, it's literal defensive ends beating the dickens out of the tackles. And just, bull rushing them to sacks. So I'm like, so you all fundamentally have issues. And if the offensive line is screwed, that means the whole team is screwed. And that's why you're seeing Mixon not even amassing 30 yards on the ground, because the offensive line just isn't solid enough. And this was supposed to be a strong suit of the team, because last year they seemed to have their stuff together in offensive line. This year, it's their biggest Achilles heel. And it's to the point where, because you're having a lot of these 1-2-3 and outs and 1-2-3 and kicks, or you start deep within Titans territory, but you have to line up for a field goal because you can't amass 2 or 3 first downs on that drive. That is big. That is huge. And it makes the defense tired. And you had bombs for touchdowns. And you had blown coverages where you had a Titans wide receiver out in the open field and you couldn't lay a finger on him. It's just, and then you had D'Amico Ryans, and I'll have to highlight this one. He said that the offense scored enough points. Defense didn't finish the job. No. I like you, D'Amico. No. The offense had opportunities that the special teams and the defense gave them, and the offense failed because the offense only scored in this game 17 points. I'm sorry. No. All right, 20. I was like, 20 points. No. You need your offense to score more than 20 points. No. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. The lack of execution on offense is let your defense have the tongue wag and have them make miscues. And I don't put it on the defense. I put it on the offense, especially that offensive line.
I don't put it on D'Amico Ryans though, because he's a defensive-minded coach. He played defense. I put this on Bobby Slowick. It's his fault. He's the offensive coordinator. He's the one who last year, with what they had going on last year, they had his name in the hat as a head coach. Well, if you're going to regress to this point, no, you do not need to be a head coach. I do not put this on the shoulders of D'Amico Ryans. I put this on Slowick.
I don't put it on Ryans. I'm just pointing out the comment of, and I get what you're saying, and you're right. He's a defensive-minded guy, so I get that. I'm just highlighting the comment. I'm like, the defense, I can't really put it on the defense. I'd put it on the offense. And yes, you hit the nail on the head. Bobby Slowick, who he was all the rage last year, and the only reason why he was not as big of a rage, he had I'm blanking on the current offense coordinator for the Lions. He was a bigger star to be poached to be a head coach. But you regressed mildly, and we're all seeing it.
Did you say the Lions?
Yeah, Lions offense.
Ben Johnson.
Thank you, Ben
Johnson.
Because
he was in line to be the Commander's coach, but he turned it down, which is why we got Dan Quinn.
Yeah, I couldn't think of the first name. I was like, Johnson's last name. I can't think first. Yeah, because of Ben Johnson and the execution that they had with the Lions, Bobby Slowick wasn't mentioned as prominent. Otherwise, I think Slowick would have gotten a head coaching job personally. But as of now, no, that ain't happening.
And the only reason why I'm not harder on the defense is because of two reasons. One, what the Texans did last year with their offense. And when this coaching staff took over this team, not this year, but the previous year, they had more weapons that they were cooking with on offense than they do on defense. They don't have any like huge, big names over there on defense. They're literally working with what they've got. So the fact that they gave up 32 points in this game, I'm not mad about it, but you got to look at where the offense put the other team in position when they were turning this ball over. That's why they scored 32 points. So,
like I am. Yep.
Yes. So with that being said, that's why I give D'Amico Ryans a pass right now, and I'm giving this defense a pass right now. Now, if we're having this same conversation in 2026, that's where things are different. Because they're going to have a couple more options to get it right with what they're cooking with over there on defense, and especially the offense. But right now, their offense is in a much better moment, and they're not capitalizing on them, which is why we're talking about this game right now. The way
100. To me, this is a case of the offense settling for threes far too often and not punching in for six, having a horrible red zone efficiency on offense, and being too predictable on offense to boot, and that offensive line hurting the performance of CJ Stroud, because you're having him having to think a lot quicker, having him force a lot more, having that pocket not be as comfortable. And that's why you're seeing him make the mistakes he's making. And because of that, and because of the fact that you had CJ Stroud hit the turf many times in this game, the Texans are now 7-5. And it's unfortunate, but that's just how it is. The Titans, they improved to 3-8. The Texans, they better be comfortable in the number 4 seed because they're going to have to hope that they're not going to face a team like the Ravens or probably even the Chargers in the first round, in the wild-card round, because it looks like that's what's going to happen. But you all got to play better on the offensive side, especially offensive line Texans. This is horrible. Horrible. And now we get to the game of the week and probably the most heartbreaking portion of my partner's time on this show this week. The Commanders, they were 74. They host the 3-7 Dallas Cowboys. This game was pretty nondescript until 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, where all the action just started to compile. Unfortunately, the Commanders, they take the L. I'm not even going to do the button. 34-26. Cooper Rush, who actually sort of looked a little bit like Dak Prescott, 24-32, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 carries and a yard. He actually looked pretty good in terms of he did not turn the ball over, and he actually was spreading the ball around pretty well. Rico Dowdle, which I can't believe I'm saying that name and then actually saying he actually had a role in this game. 19 carries, 86 yards. He also had 3 receptions with 12 yards. He also had a lost fumble in the game as well. On defense, you had Micah Parsons, who actually showed up instead of on the mic on the field. 4 solo tackles, 2 tackles for losses, 3 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks. And he actually had the only 2 sacks, if I'm not mistaken, of the Cowboys. Chauncey Golston had a pick, and Israel Mukuamu, he also had a pick. And we'll get to the special teams after I say Brandon Aubrey. He missed a couple field goals, but he was 2 of 4 from field goal range. But I'll get to the Cowboys special teams a little later. Jaden Daniels on the other side, 25 of 38, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, and those 2 picks I mentioned. He also had 7 carries for 74 yards with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion on his legs. The Commanders offense, they amassed 145 yards on the ground. Terry McLaurin, 5 receptions and 102 yards and an 86-yard touchdown. Incredible touchdown reception. And a run on top of that, and the yard after catch run. Austin Seibert, I feel for him. 2 of 3 for field goals. He had a long for 51 yards. He missed not 1, but 2 extra points, but I put that second one on the snapper, not on Seibert. But the game basically was turned on the special teams of the Cowboys. They had not 1, but 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns. Kavontae Turpin, 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, started off of a spin move to get him free in an open lane and found the crease. And then off of the onside kick, Wanye Thomas, he had a 43-yard touchdown off of that. Your thoughts of the Commanders dropping their game 34-26 to Cowboys?
All right, let me prepare myself. As a result of this game, who am I? We going to the Super Bowl.
This has been yet another Beating a Dead Horse presentation.
Man, get the expletive out of here.
Delete!
Oh,
I had to get the shenanigans out the way early on. So I can
win
focus.
Thursday, we'll be hearing that. We'll be hearing all of that.
Yes.
Oh.
Happy Thanksgiving, because now you're going to be hearing all sorts of type of shenanigan for the next now Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Oh.
Congratulations, our week is ruined. That's the way
Yes.
that I feel
Yes,
at
it
this
is.
point.
Yes, it
Happy expletive Thanksgiving,
Oh.
because when Cooper Rush throws 24 of 32 for 247 yards and 2 touchdowns,
Cooper Rush.
and he does better than Jaden Daniels in not turning the ball over, you know this is a rough day, and especially when this is at home. Earlier yesterday, I had this feeling around 11:30 in the morning that I should take a nap. And something told me internally, you need to take a nap or you will die. And I'm glad I did. I took a nap. I slept in the first half, which I'm glad because there was so much
You missed
action
nothing in the first half.
in the first half. I set the alarm for like 3:15 or something like that. It was like 10 something, 3:10, 3:15, something like that. Because I was like, if I get up, there'll still be a decent amount of time. And I got up just before the
At the
alarm.
right
I
time.
literally got up, I'd say it was halfway through the third quarter. So I missed the first 2.5 quarters. I did eventually go back and watch, the game because I got the NFL Plus app and I checked different things out. But I didn't look at it as in depth as I would have if I were watching the entire game. So I go back and I watch this Commanders game. Well, I wouldn't say go back and I watch it afterwards. I'm watching this Commanders game for the last 1.5 quarters, and I see the back and forth in the fourth quarter because through the first 3 quarters, it was only 10-9.
Right.
It was literally anybody's ball game.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody was a betting person, they would have put their money on the Commanders.
Of course.
Because then, you get to the fourth quarter, the Cowboys are up 10-9, but then between both teams, it looked like the entirety of a score throughout the entire of a game because it was a 24-17 scoring in the fourth quarter. Now, with that being said, we have to look at how that scoring took place. It started off with Brandon Aubrey hitting a 48-yard field goal.
Mm-hmm.
And Cooper Rush throwing a 22-yard pass. So the Cowboys at this point had scored 10 points, and they were up 20-9. It was not looking good until Zach Ertz for the second consecutive week, who was on fire with that 2-point conversion that he caught the previous week.
He was solid in this
Eagles. Game. And that was a hard one to swallow then there, too.
Mm-hmm.
You look at that, Kevontae Turpin, that 99-yard kick return. That thing was electric. I'm not a fan of the Cowboys. I despise them. But that was a thing
of beauty.
But that was because he is the fastest man in the NFL for a reason. And it was on display right there in that 99-yard return. I did enjoy watching that. Just wish it would have happened against somebody else. I will say that. And I did not enjoy it with a star on the helmet. I would have thoroughly enjoyed it with any of the other 31 teams in the league. But I did for a split second forget that it was the Cowboys running that play. I did and I did forget that it was against my team for a split second. But anyway, back on track. Seibert, the 51-yard field goal after that keeps it close.
Yeah.
But the following drive that they scored on with 21 seconds left in the game. The way Terry McLaurin caught that little screen pass on the out and ran it back 86 yards. The fact that Cliff has drawn up multiple plays this year that have been great. We would go back to the Hail Mary game. We already know I was in attendance, but the fact whether I was there or not, the fact that he drew it up that way, and he's drawn up not just that, but plays like this to Terry, these little out route screen passes and taking it back for 86 yards. That was a thing of beauty.
It was.
The momentum was crushed, though, the second that Seibert missed that extra point. It was crushed. I mean, I don't think that next play would have happened where that 43-yard kick return would have happened. I don't think that would have happened.
It wouldn't have. If he made the extra point, it wouldn't have because it would have been a regular kickoff.
Yeah, and it was only a 43-yard return because they onside kicked it.
Right.
So, I don't even remember the last time that I saw a onside kick go back like that.
I can't either.
It looked like literally when you were watching it, like as soon as I saw that, I turned the TV off. I didn't want to see the last 14 seconds. I didn't want to see post-game interviews. I was appalled at that point because literally he kicked it. They saw that nobody from the Commanders was recovering it, and they just literally stopped in their tracks. Is what it seemed like.
Yeah,
I was disgusted.
Yeah, it was like
based on what I had seen throughout this year. Now
they recovered.
That doesn't take away from what we saw throughout the majority of the fourth quarter until that point. They fought hard. I did appreciate that. I was glad that I didn't sleep the entire game away, and that I at least did watch the important parts of the game. But I'm also glad for my health that I did sleep through the first half because some told me that you need to sleep or die, and I think my body was right because had I watched that entire game up to that point and then saw all that, I might be in the hospital right now. You may have been doing this show by yourself today. All right, had that been the case, because that was a tough one to stomach. to watch them have such a very dismal performing game. And then all of a sudden, it's back and forth, back and forth.
Mhm.
What it looks like in score, but really the first part of the fourth quarter, the Cowboys were dominating.
Yeah, they
Then
were.
the Commanders came back. Then it was
Mhm.
back and forth briefly at the very end. And then the Cowboys just took over once that momentum shift of that missed field goal, because then they score on that onside kick. I don't
Mhm.
think that they just let them take it back to the house because they're like, oh yeah, we'll have like 7.5 seconds. We can score another touchdown again. No, nobody thinks that way, like at
Mhm.
all. Like you don't
No.
just onside kick it. They recover and they're like, oh, we're just gonna let them go to the house because we'll have plenty of time with no timeouts. We could do it again. It does
No.
not work that way.
No, they just said F it's over. Yeah. And
Exactly.
you saw it on the field. Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. I was very disappointed to see that. And that is not what a winning team does. That is not what a
Yeah.
team that's supposed to win the division
Mhm.
does.
Right.
We were talking about it the previous week. I was about how clock management has hurt them multiple times this year.
I heard
it
them in this
them
game
against the
too.
Eagles. And in this right here, you can argue it wasn't to the same magnitude,
It wasn't
but
as bad, but it hurt them here too.
but yes,
Mhm.
and the turnovers. So
Oh yeah, definitely
turnovers, clock management, they're still in certain ways too, and this is something that I stressed earlier in the season when we first started talking about the success of the Commanders.
Mhm.
They still need more time to grow
Yeah.
more chemistry,
Yeah.
add more pieces.
Mhm.
This is not their year. You
Nope.
remember when they were starting to win and everybody was getting excited. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, don't you drink the Kool-Aid. You drink the Kool-Aid, not talking to you, but just
Oh no, I get what you're saying.
talking with you to the
Yeah.
people. Don't
Right.
you drink the Kool-Aid yet. The past couple weeks have been a prime example in
Mhm.
these division matchups. And I said last week, I
Yeah.
said I was picking the Commanders to win, but
And
I
they
would
should have
not
won
be
this game.
surprised if they lose because it
Mhm.
is a division game.
Correct.
And no matter if the Commanders are the ones who are playing terribly when they were 4-13 last year, you still had to take them seriously in the division games.
You do.
And even if it wasn't a year that you were watching all the games, you were still watching when they played Dallas. You were
Mhm.
still watching when they played Philadelphia.
Mhm.
The Giants games probably not so much because they were both sleeper teams last year too. But
Mhm.
right here and now, I can get as animated as I can about this because of the amount of games that I have watched. I already knew what to expect coming into it, and I'm not surprised that this happened. I'm just disappointed in some of the things that took place as to how it happened,
That's a good way
because
to
it
put
got pretty ugly there for a moment at the end, and it was ugly. It was like a Tim Tebow game where
it.
3.5 quarters
Nothing
or 3
happened.
quarters, there was absolutely nothing. And then all the action happens in the last like 6.5 minutes.
Mhm.
So, but yes, there's a lot of improvement that needs to happen
100.
on the Cowboys side, more so than the Commanders.
Yeah.
But they need to clean things up over there in Washington, and they need to look at games like this during this offseason
I
when
hope
they
do.
need to really stew on certain things and find things they were exposed on in a game. You're going to get exposed during your division rival because you play them the most out of everybody in the season.
Right.
The good thing about this is they still
Right.
have one more opportunity to make it right, and they can embarrass them like they embarrassed
Yeah.
us
So you
in
get
Jerry
travel to
World.
Dallas. Yeah, you get travel to Arlington. Yeah. But and remember what I said to you before the season began. I said, I'm not gonna say they're gonna have a bad season. I'm not gonna say they have a good season, but you just look at Jaden Daniels' growth or lack thereof, which he's grown, obviously, and just manage your expectations from there. Forget the record. Just look at him and his growth. Just see how he manages this year, and I think you'll get a gauge as to how well the future will be. And that is pretty much how you have to gauge this season. Because if you were to gauge it on wins and losses, yeah, you would probably want to toss stuff right now, because they were once 6-2, at one time they were 6-2, and and people were doing cartwheels, especially after the game where you had the Hail Mary that was answered. So yeah, am I surprised at 75? Not really. Am I happy to 75? Yeah. And I'm happy to 75 because they're doing it with a rookie quarterback. and they're doing it with a defense that they've been rebuilding. I mean, heck, they had Chase Young and Montez Sweat, and they traded them both. So they have a defense that they're rebuilding. And of course, they were without the free agent pick up in Marshawn Lattimore in the game. So I mean,
yes,
on the defensive side, they're rebuilding. So I figured, okay, so this is going to be sort of up and down. It's going to be rough, and they may find some diamonds in the rough on defense, which you have, Dante Fowler Jr. and Frankie Louvu. I mean, you'll find some diamonds in the rough. But offense, it's like, okay, they got to build that offensive line. They got to find somebody else to take the pressure off of Terry McLaurin to be the guy on the receiving end. They got to hope they have the running game that can actually help out Daniels. And Brian Robinson, he can do it, but he just seems to have injury problems. I mean, sometimes he can be out there, and then other times he can't go. So I was like, okay, and I just took an investment that took a look at the team. I was like, okay, this is going to be the season for a Commanders fan, and just to be on the outside looking in, I was like, all right, Commanders fan, don't judge it by the record, judge it by how number 5 does. And where he goes, your team goes. And you're probably going to have games where you'd be like, oh, why'd you do that, Jaden? And you're going to have games where you're like, that's what I'm talking about. That's why we drafted him. And you've had that. And this game is a little unfortunate from the standpoint of, yeah, you got a chance to see Jaden make a few mistakes. But I think the one takeaway from this is they did not lose the game because of him. He actually put the team in position to tie the game and send it into overtime. So that's why I say just manage expectations and look at it that way. Not saying you, because I think you're wise and smart enough to do this. But my thought was, okay, well, this team isn't fully set yet. They don't have all the pieces yet, and they're not going to dominate. I don't expect them to compete with the Eagles.
They apply enough pressure.
Yeah.
One sack all day.
Right.
Like that was it.
Right. I don't expect them to compete with the Eagles. Just simply have number 5 stay upright all year. Just have him stand upright and then try to teach him how to lead the team and just go from there.
He didn't help his cause when he threw 2 picks.
No, he didn't. He did not.
But I would say in comparison to your team, his turnovers were not as detrimental to the team as CJ Stroud was to his, because
100
literally
they were
the
not.
Commanders had no help on defense because of the amount of points they gave, and especially when you look at how many points they gave up in the fourth quarter. That was not completely because they were gassed.
No.
And yes, Lattimore would help, but I don't think he would make that much of a difference. There's still 10 other people around him. I will say, just like I was talking about with Ryan on Extra the other day, that because with the CFL gone, to make you proud and to not make the segment go to waste, we added the Gridiron Scoop back to Extra to keep it going, because we got to have a little bit of filler in there too. And one of the things we talked about was it's been 3 straight games now because he had been ruled out for Sunday's game against the Cowboys. For the 3rd straight game, Lattimore is been ruled out. Would you consider this trade to be a bust at this point in the season?
It's
because one of his stature coming over there to his age, and 3, the fact he hadn't played yet. And we were talking about that. And regardless, and part of what I was saying was, even if he does play, you still have to have the other 10 people play around you. And even if that was the case, if he would have been in there, you can't even fully blame everything on the secondary in this situation.
I wouldn't either.
The defensive front wasn't putting pressure on. It was the Chiefs' defense didn't look as bad against the Panthers as the Commanders looked against the Cowboys, is all I'm going to say.
Well, even as off as the defense was, the Commanders only gave up 20 points on defense. So you have that. But I agree with you, though. Even though the Marshawn Lattimore pickup would be huge if he would be able to contribute, if he was on the field, you still have 10 of the guys that play with him. So I agree with you. Unfortunately, the Commanders, they fall to 7-5. The Cowboys, they improved to 4-7. gosh! And then we're gonna be here. And I actually saw it before this recording began. The Cowboys are gonna run the table, win the division, and win the Super Bowl. I actually saw that.
What?
I wish
I know.
I was.
I know that there's
Putting
no way this
on.
man said it.
No,
I
it was
would
not.
expect
It did not
that.
come from him. It did not come from him. No.
I would expect that from a fair weather 49ers fan that we both know. But if they were in this position at this point in the year, but not Vicola.
No,
But
no, it wasn't him.
There's two more things I want to say since we're on
Go
my
ahead.
team, and then I want to leave it. One, the Commanders got commanded. Okay. The Cowboys came to town and they took command. All right, there's my personality for you guys. All right. And two, 12 days ago, Congress, Senator, went up there with his display of pictures.
Oh,
One of
Lord.
them happened to be of a logo that's on my left arm in a half sleeve. Okay.
The logo's cool.
The
I'll
logo-
say that. The logo's cool.
They are pushing to bring the logo back, not go back to the formerly REDSKINS name, because there are people out there that are woke as expletive and they want to cry and they want to cry. I'm not trying to take this political, but they want to cry, they want to cry, they want to cry. Guess what? You cried so much you lost your election recently. And now you're about to lose one more thing. At some point in the future, I might not have to wear this stupid hoodie anymore. I can wear my man back on my shirt, Mr. Blackie, okay? Mr. Blackie, what's back on my shirt, okay? And it's all because of all you crybabies out there in these streets. Thank you so much for crying in 2020. Thank you. You at least get the name gone, okay? But you can never take our heritage away. We're gonna get our mascot back. We're gonna get our logo back, and you're gonna shut the expletive up, because then you won't be able to come in there and say we commanded the Commanders. We're gonna have a new name. It's gonna be cool. I don't even care if they're the Washington Native Americans. It could be the Washington NAs for not applicals. I don't care. It's still better than the Commanders. All right.
Oh, yeah,
And
that
we
is
get
much
to have
better
our
than-
guy back on our helmet. That's the way I look at it. You take that for what it is, and I had to end the game of the week off on a right note.
Well, I don't disagree with the logo. In fact, I think the logo's cool. I always thought that. It's just the name that I never liked. But the logo, yeah, logo should have stayed. I mean,
Because look at it. Besides the Indians, this all happened because of Woke Nation. It was not a problem until the 2010s, Cole. You might have felt some way about the name. I respect that. I respect that part of
the
the
name. The name,
Was
not
I a
the
fan
logo.
of the team
Yeah.
because of the name? No, I was born into it.
Yeah.
I was in Redskins baby clothes and Huggies. Okay, whether it was a curse or a blessing, I don't know. My family did it to me. Okay, so I'm gonna say I'm still gonna stick with the logo, and I am going to still petition for that. This team deserves it. They deserve to. The fan base, they think they've sold out games now. They bring that logo back, they're going to be selling out a whole lot more than what they've been selling out recently. I just wanted to make sure while we had a position, I was waiting for us to have a game of the week spot for this team since that meeting. It's coming. Like, there were movements that were started. There were certain things that have been coming because of the election, and this is one of them. Within the next year or two, we're going to have that logo back.
Yeah, I think the logo should come back personally, because I think it's one of the best ones ever in NFL history, and I really do mean that. I do mean that. Well, that concludes this one for Game of the Week, which was an interesting one in the fourth quarter. It also concludes opening drive. But you know what we're going to do? Forget the commercials. Let me see. How can I do this? This. Oh Lord, new state. Well, you can talk about that. There's been talk about new stadiums, right?
Oh yeah, so RFK, It looks like they have passed it to where RFK will be back in the hands of the franchise. But they're still going to have to, like, in my opinion, and based on what I'm reading and stuff, they're going to have to tear it down, build a whole new one. It's not like it's going to end like that. But I think by the year 2030, we could have a new RFK stadium, a new name for a team. And, I know that it's been an expletive show there, Mick, when it comes to this, but this is all because you need to look at what happened in 2020, the woke nation. You need to look at what happened with the owner. Okay. He was a terrible owner, and he was just literally trying to find a quick fix, but also a quick fix to make everybody mad at the same time too, because it will fix it for one side, but it'll make everybody mad on the other side. So he was literally, I wouldn't even say playing devil's advocate, which is being a devil. Okay. So
100.
that's how this is here. Sick. I disagree with the reinventing the logo. It's going to be the same logo.
I don't think
It's just going to be a different name. I'm pretty sure, because that's what they're passing for right now. Like there's more people that are upset, especially Native Americans, that are upset that their ancestry is not being represented. They don't even, and the funny thing is, that's why I understand how you feel, Cole, but I disagree to an extent, because Native Americans don't even get upset about that name. Now, if you are a part of a culture and you have a derogatory name, and if your culture has a derogatory name, and you personally are upset with that, like we all are, you and I are part of different cultures. If my culture's, derogatory names are part of a team, might feel some type of way. I know you would for what your cultures, the names that represent for that too. But this one right here, if that culture is not even getting upset, then why do we have the right to voice our opinion on that? And why do we have an opinion to bring up cancel culture for something if that background doesn't even really give an expletive? I think that our opinions don't really matter as much on that as theirs does. And if they're petitioning to bring that name back, you will accept it, or you will have to accept it. And we will start talking that name again if it is accepted. But I don't think it will.
Yeah, I don't think it will either. And
the logo, yes, but not the name.
Yeah, and like I said, I have never had an issue with the logo at all. In fact, I don't have an issue with the name or the inspiration of the logo. Zilch, never did. And when people have this conversation with me, they always go to the logo. I'm like, I don't have an issue with the logo. Never did. I'm like, heck, put the logo back. Fine. But I just don't like a slur being repped. That's me. And I'm not saying the logo reps a slur. I'm just like, the promotion of the slur is what I didn't like. But that's me. That's a personal thing.
I mean, things were different in 1933. I get it, and we do have to adapt and change with the times. I get that too. But at the same time, it's if America is clamoring for not just the logo but the name to come back, and they accept it, and we get past it, I think we're okay with it. I think we're gonna have to just move on. And just because this whole cancel culture and the NFL apologizing for stuff, I'm just done with it. I'm done with it. You need to stop getting political. We turn on football to get away from all that crap. All right. I don't want to see hashtag this and hashtag that. If you were raised properly, if you were right in the environment, you wouldn't even need to have this stuff blasted in front of your face to begin with. All right. So cancel culture is a distraction, like Six said, and I'm just looking forward to telling who my snowflake of the week is at this point.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. I hope that you all liking this. We are this is Total Football Talk, and we're just going to go straight into it here. All right, now is the time to not award the snowflake of the week yet, but we're going to award the Grand Champ. That's right. Where are our dogs at? So, Drew, who is your dog of the week / Grand Champ?
So for my dog of the week, it's definitely not Will Levis. I can't give it to him. It's definitely not Cooper Rush. I'm not going to give it to any of the past two games teams. I would have to say my biggest impactful player of the week is Saquon Barkley, Cole.
Oh, yeah.
For what he did. Like 255 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 26 carries out of all that, and also added an additional 4 receptions for 47 yards. The man had over 300 all-purpose yards on 30 different plays from scrimmage that he impacted. There's nobody else I can give this to but Saquon. I have to give it to him. I can't take anything away from him on this day, and I'm very proud for him for what he did. I just wish that he was on my
team. 100% great choice. Well, I mean, I would have been surprised if you didn't say his name, actually.
I think Dante would have been mad at me if I didn't pick him either.
But yeah, I will definitely say Saquon Barkley, he's had the performance of the week, no matter who else I select. But I'll tip my cap to someone. I know that you have a passion for the sport, and obviously you love to play it, and you have an acuity to do it, and hopefully you can do it safely. And I'm addressing this to the winner of this week's Grand Champ for me. That'd be Tua Tagovailoa. You've actually have had a steady improvement in your game since you've come back. You've actually played pretty well. Your team seems to respond well to you. The team was circling the drain all the while before you came back, and now ever since that Bills loss that you had in Buffalo, the team has righted the ship. You've righted the ship along with it, and now the fortunes of it have continued, and now you're in position. I came very close to giving this to Bo Nix, but I was like, nah, I'm gonna have to give it to give it to somebody who I think is more deserving. Over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, you are leading your team back to a possible playoff spot, and hopefully you get there. And Tua, I tip my cap to you, brother. All right, I think that does it for the Grand Champ. Let's continue, shall we? Total football talk. All right, it is time for the 2-minute drill. We break down the action for the upcoming week. And since we are now in week 12, this is the last week before everybody gets their buys in, where there will be no buys. So all 32 teams will be suiting up for either Thursday, Friday, or Sunday, or Monday. And we'll begin with tonight's matchup between the Ravens and the Chargers. The Ravens come in 7-4. The Chargers are 7-3. ESPN ABC will have that kickoff at 8:15. All times are Eastern. So in this matchup, looking like right now between 2 wildcard teams, who do you have in this one?
This one's going to be tough. I think because it's a home game and because for the Chargers and because of the upswing they've been on, they've got something to prove, and they have to prove it against a team of the caliber of the Ravens. They're going to have a hard time stopping the run a little bit, but I think they find a way to edge it out at the end and win by a field goal or less. Give them to the Chargers.
Yeah. It's strange that I'm actually going to see a team in the Ravens probably fall to 7-5. The Chargers, I think, have what it takes to actually limit what the Ravens can do, because you got someone in Jim Harbaugh, who I know he knows his brother very well, and John, and vice versa. They want to take away what the Ravens do best. And I think the Chargers will successfully take away from what the Ravens do best, which is to establish a run with Henry and to have Lamar Jackson do whatever he can, and then everything else falls where the chips do. Unfortunately, I don't see it that way. I agree with you. I think the Chargers will take care of business. Now on to the Thanksgiving games. We will begin with the 12:30 game on CBS. The Lions, who normally you want to simply discard this game, You may still want to, but it won't be because of the Lions. It'll be because of the Bears. Although I'll say this to their credit, or at least to Caleb Williams' credit, and yes, this is going to be a shot at a colleague of ours. Caleb Williams is not a bust. Just because you see the 4-7 record does not mean he's a bust. Unfortunately, they are, but it's not because of him. It's because of the rest of the team. Who do you have in this game between the Bears and the Lions?
He's not a bust, but I'm sure his expletive not going to pick fingernail, man. I've got the Lions winning this one decisively.
That's a mic drop on that one. Yeah, fingernail man, I'm not picking either. The Lions are just going too well. They're going too smooth. And the Bears don't really have, I don't think, what it takes to stop what the Lions are doing on offense. I think they're just too physical for them. The Fox 4:30 p.m. kick between, of course, the annual Dallas Cowboy home game. They come in the game at 4-7. They host the 2-9 New York Giants. Do the Giants stand any chance of beating the Cowboys?
I think the bigger statement to make here is that they scheduled this game at the perfect time because everybody will be eating and not paying attention. No matter who wins, everybody wins because they're not going to be watching this game. They're going to be eating and talking with family and paying attention to things that matter more than this.
Oh.
I think this game could end in a 0-0 tie, and there's no way that there's a score here because both teams suck. But no, somebody's going to score, and more than likely, I think the Cowboys find a way to win this game. I wouldn't say find a way, but I think the Cowboys win this game because of what they did this past weekend. And the Cowboys fans are going to get upset about it, and that's what I'm going to love about it the most because at this point, they want to have a top 5 pick and have a chance to either get Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter. And they're going to screw themselves out of the only thing they want this season. And they're going to do that by winning a second consecutive game. I don't think the Giants win. I think the Giants have a better chance of tanking for Shedeur or Travis Hunter than the Cowboys do.
100. And, yeah, I think it's going to be the Cowboys. And, yeah, Cowboys fan, I think they're stuck between we them boys and tanking for Shedeur.
No matter what, you still have Tyrone Alexander dummies running around, so that's even worse for you.
Yeah, because they'll say no matter what. But yeah, I see the Cowboys winning this one too. The NBC Peacock game, 8:20 p.m. kickoff, and judging by the weather, it actually might be a game played between the Dolphins and the Packers on the frozen tundra of Lambeau Hill. The Dolphins are 5-6. The Packers are 8-3. Who do you have in this one?
I think that we're going to get upset, or I wouldn't say we're going to get upset, but there could potentially be an upset when you look at statistical teams right here. And the Dolphins might just have what it takes to get to 500 in this game and humble the Packers a little bit because the Packers have been very quietly doing very well in their division with 3. But the Dolphins are a completely different team when Tua's in the center. So if Tua plays from start to finish, doesn't get hurt, does not get whacked inside his hand, where it alters his thought process, and as long as he doesn't lead with his head, the Dolphins are going to win this game. In Lambeau Field, it could definitely go the other way because the Packers are at home, but it's not too frozen yet.
No, it's not too frozen.
Right. I think Tua can do it.
It's not too frozen yet. I think Jordan Love will not make the key mistakes that's necessary for the Dolphins to go in there and win it. I mean, it's there for the taking. If the Dolphins could commit to running the ball against the Packers, I think they do stand a chance of actually, I won't even say steal. They have a chance to outright take a game from there. Unfortunately, I don't have enough faith in them to do so. I have a lot of faith in Tua. I'm starting to have less and less faith in Mike McDaniels in the game plans that he comes forth for his team, at least offensively for sure. So I'm picking the Packers, but I think this probably will be the best game of the day, actually, between the 3. So I have no horse in the race, but I think the Packers will win it. I think they'll notch their record to 9-3. But I will not be surprised if the Dolphins do win, though, because Jordan Love, he keeps making too many mistakes, and those receivers love to drop passes. All right. Now, let's go to the Black Friday game. Prime Video will have this game. 3 p.m. is the kick. The defending back-to-back Super Bowl champs at 10-1, the Chiefs, they will host the Raiders. Would you take your nap here?
Probably should. Probably should. Normally during this time, I would have Total Football Talk Extra pop up, but because of Friday being Black Friday and there's a game on, I'll either do it later that night or probably just move it to Saturday for this particular week, just to go ahead and get that announcement out the way. But when it comes to this right here, I think Kansas City is definitely winning this game. Yeah. The Raiders are and still and will be my choice between now and the end of the year for who will have the number 1 overall pick. Yeah, and they will get one step closer by getting decimated in this game.
Yeah, they're looking like it. They look like the team that is best suited for that overall number 1. 6 says Cole. The Cowboys are tanking for Deion Sanders, baby boy. Pray to God that Tam won't do a cover of Coach Prime's Must Be the Money. Lord have mercy. Okay. On to Sunday. Goodness gracious.
They can do whatever they want as long as we can click this at the end.
This has been yet another Beating a Dead Horse presentation. Must be the money, must be the money that's turning me on, must be the money. I'm sorry, my bad. On to Sunday. And the Chargers, who, well, they haven't played their game tonight. They are currently 7-3. They could be 8-3 or 7-4. They're traveling to the ATL on Sunday to play the Falcons. They're at 6-5. CBS will have their kick 1 p.m. Who do you have in that one?
This one's a little bit tougher because if the Chargers do what I predict them to do tonight and win this game at home, the momentum will continue. It will be continued on their side, and I feel like they can go in Atlanta and win this game. If they lose at home, however, I feel like there's a potential that we could see them take back L's. So it's going to be primarily what we see out of them in the game out of the Ravens that makes me choose that. That's what makes this part tough, doing this without seeing the game before that. So, and based on the Falcons playing very underwhelmingly at this point in the year, I say that the Chargers will have the momentum to beat them. They will take the win against the Ravens, and they will win in Atlanta. You're muted. Can you hear me? Oh. I don't know what happened to him. So Cole is talking, but he's not even in here. It's just me. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Oh, wait, hang on. There is a message. Oh, my bad. I'll just have to clip all this out when we put this in we make the MP3 part. But yes, we are going to sit here and say, sorry about that. I did not know what was going on for a second. We're going to say that the Chargers are going to win that game. And that, yes, we still have 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 10 games to go. With that being said, you know what? Let's go ahead and we said we weren't going to take a commercial break, but let's go ahead and do that. We'll take a commercial break, and hopefully when we come on back, Cole will be all set to rock and roll.
Later, the post game. But coming up next, the 2-minute drill. This is Total Football Talk. Comey Media Incorporated. Creating content magic In the real world.
In a world where chronicles of the past are brought to the streams, whether the content is relatable or completely beyond your realm of life, there is no shadow of a doubt that this show is absolutely full of shenanigans. Get ready for
D. Willie in the evening.
this Sunday at 10:05 p.m. Eastern.
Exclusively on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $sign D Willie 87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How about some Willie Bucks?
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history.
All right. I'm not sure if Cole's back yet, but couldn't let it go for too long now that we've gotten a decent reset going. Let's go ahead and keep ripping and running through these games, and we'll see where he's at if he can come on back. But we're going to go now into the Steelers, who are 8-3 against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 4-7 this Sunday, 1:00 p.m. Eastern time on CB Mother, Father, and S. I've got the Steelers winning this game decisively over the Bengals. The Bengals will fall to 4-8. The Steelers will improve to 9-3, and that's who I have in this game. Next, we're going to go ahead and take, looks like the Arizona Cardinals, who are 6-5, traveling to Minnesota to take on the Vikings, who are 9-2, as a parent of what this past weekend took place. Cardinals, I feel like, are going to fall to 6-6. The Vikings improved to a very quiet 10-2. People need to put a little bit of respect on the Vikings name, and that's what we're going to have when this game ends. Vikings win this game, improve to 10-2. Cardinals fall to 6-6, and that is my pick for this game.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
Moving on to the Indianapolis Colts, who are 5-7, traveling to New England to get some clam chowder and take on the Patriots. Patriots are 3-9. This is another 1:00 p.m. Eastern game on Sunday on CBS. I feel like the Colts are going to win this game, improve to 6-7. Patriots fall to 3-10 and be one step closer to a top 5 pick after this game.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
Our next game that we have on the slate is Mickey Delaney's Seattle Seahawks, who are 6-5, traveling to New York to take on the Jets, the lowly Jets, who are one game away for a loss, getting one step closer towards elimination from the playoffs. I think that gets to be into fruition after this game. The Seahawks improved to 7-5. The Jets fall to 3-9 in this 1:00 contest on Fox. The next to last of 1:00 games for this weekend, the second next to last, is we still have 2 more 1:00 games.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
After this game right here, I'd have to say we've got the 3-8 Tennessee Titans, who are traveling to Washington to take on the Commanders, 1:00 p.m. Eastern time on CBS. The Commanders are 7-5 after what happened against the Cowboys. The Titans are 3-8. They absolutely are terrible. They will be terrible even a little bit more as they fall to 3-9. The Commanders will improve to 8-5, be one step closer to having a positive record for this season. And that's how I feel it will all go down on this Sunday.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
And now our final 1:00 p.m. game for this Sunday, the Houston Texans Coles team, who are 7-5, travel to Jacksonville to take on the lowly Jaguars, led by Hippie Man, a.k.a. Trevor Lawrence. Texans are going to win this game, improve to 8-5. Hippie Man falls 2-10. They will also be in the top 5 for draft picks this upcoming season. and they will get one step closer by losing this game this Sunday.
Who's giving them the business?
Let's go ahead and take this 4 o'clock game. Well, we got 3 4 o'clock games to break down for you. And the first one is at 4:05 on Fox. Got to take a look at the Los Angeles Rams, who are 5-6, taking on the New Orleans Saints, who are 4-7. This one's pretty tough because the Saints are not mathematically eliminated yet, but they are terrible, and they do not have a head coach right now. They have an interim one. I feel like they will take the loss in this game. The Rams will get one step closer towards potentially taking the division when they improve to 500 and get to 6-6 after this week. That is what happens in this first of 3 4 o'clock contests.
Who's giving them the business?
Our next game that we have right here, we got to take a look at. Let's see. I lost my place. My apologies. Back on track. Looks like we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 5-6, taking on the Carolina Panthers, who are 3-8 and looking very, very bad, except for this past weekend against the Chiefs. I feel like they will regress yet again, fall to 3-9. Buccaneers get to 500 and be one step closer towards regaining the top of their division. They will do this on the road in Carolina for the second of 4:05 contests on Fox.
Who's giving them the business?
In our last of 4 o'clock games, this one happens to be at 4:25 in Baltimore as the Eagles travel from Philadelphia to Baltimore in another game that tests them and their fortitude. I'm going to have to say the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 9-2, going into Baltimore, who is 7-4, will get this win at the 4:25 game. They will improve to 10-2. Be one more game closer towards winning this division in the NFC East. Baltimore will fall to 7-5. This will be a tough pill to swallow when you look at the fact that you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are still nipping at their heels, who I predicted to win and improve to 9-3. I wouldn't say they're nipping at their heels. The Ravens are nipping at the heels of the Steelers, and if they do not win this game against the Eagles, they will have to pray for a wild card spot because it is not looking good for them at this moment.
Who's giving them the business?
Now we have to take this into the Sunday night game. The 5-6 San Francisco 49ers go to Buffalo to take on the 9-2 Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills hosting this game at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time on NBC, aka Peacock. 49ers have a chance to get to 500 and upset the Bills and put them one game backwards as well for Buffalo. I don't think that happens. I think Buffalo wins, improves to 10-2. 49ers regress to 2 games under 500, and the fair weather snowflake 49er fans can take that and run with it and get upset if they want to. I'm sorry, not sorry. That's how I feel on this day when it comes to the 2-minute drill.
Who's giving them the business?
And now it's time for us to take it into one of my most favorite segments of the week. It's time to go to the Snowflake of the Week.
Total football talk.
Hey, let's start it a little differently today and let Cole give us his snowflake of
All
the
right.
week first.
All right. Well, where should I go with it? I think you hit the nail on the head as to where I was going to go for snowflake of the week. Bobby Slowick, come on down.
Nice.
For those who don't know that name, he is the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, and we have been seeing a steady regression in the execution of this offense. And people have pointed, well, it's the offensive line, and yeah, the offensive line has sucked They've been one has been the most penalized guy in Laramie Tunzel, and he's the left tackle in all of the NFL this year. But yes, the offensive line has been horrible. They pointed at injuries for wide receiver. Yes, I know. Nico Collins is out for a while, and Stephon Diggs has been out for the year. They've pointed to a suspect running game, but you really can't, because whenever the offensive line decides to block, Joe Mixon actually does pretty well. So you pointed out at all these places, and they were saying, well, yeah, CJ Stroud is suffering a sophomore slump. You will suffer a slump of any type of season. I don't care if it's a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior season. You'll suffer a slump if your protection is faulty, and if the play calling aids in the faulty protection as well. Because if you know that the team's going to run a first down, run a second down, you get next to nothing, and you're third and long, you got to force a first down. What is a QB going to do? He's going to try to force it into some place if he can get the ball off. More likely he'll get a sack. Slowick, you're calling bad games, and you're starting to make the team look bad. And you're hurting the defense now. People are probably going to look at the defense incorrectly, I may add, and say, well, the defense gave away that game. No. Your offense had the opportunity to execute, and they failed multiple times in yesterday's game. So you got to tighten that ship up. Otherwise, we'll probably have to look for another offensive coordinator, because the way the Texans operate on offense, it cannot continue. And oh, by the way, next month you play the Chiefs and the Ravens. You can't be acting the way you are with those two defenses. Nah, you got to tighten that ship up, buddy.
Well said. I had a feeling you were going to go that route too, based on how I lit things up earlier. And speaking of lighting things up earlier, I'm going to go with a core of a team that has been overhyped for a couple of years, and they definitely displayed that this past weekend. This is for all you fair weather fans out there. I'm picking the 49ers running back core. When you look at Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason this past weekend combining for 14 carries for 39 yards. When you don't have your quarterback in there because he's hurt, you got to do something. And usually you're going to have to pick up the slack in the running game. And when you only had 14 carries for 39 yards and your backup quarterback still had to throw 29 passes and only completed 17 of them for 199 yards with a touchdown and a pick, that's not good enough. Your offensive line is not that bad, because if they were that bad, you wouldn't have been making the playoff successes that you've had over the past couple of years. So I've got to say that this has been a very underwhelming year. I know that Christian McCaffrey was banged up and took a while for him to get started this season. He's having the tendonitis in both legs. I get that. But these type of numbers and how he started this year is looking like he is a whole lot closer to retirement than people thought when they made this trade for him a couple of years ago. I really think that this is not a reflection of the protection that they have on the offensive line. This has everything to do with the fact that this team is just the running back core is just not what they need them to be. And I am surprised to say this because of what Mason was doing his first and second game of the year. And I was putting a lot of praise on him, but we have seen them get exposed against teams that are not that good. And for that, and now that you have McCaffrey back and you're only putting up this type of production, I have to say that this running back core of the 49ers are my pick for this current Snowflake of the Week.
I likes a lot. And whoever you deem is the worst of the worst, we would like to know. You can drop in the chat. You can drop it into the discussion in the description box below. You want to know who you think has been a snowflake of a person this week on your own. Well, since I think we've done everything else, I think it's time for one more thing.
As long as it's one. It's great. I love it.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of episode number 65. This is the post game where we give our final thoughts of the week that was, and maybe even thoughts of what we might see for the week to come. And for his thoughts, Drew, the post game's all yours.
I'm excited. We've got 4 games this week between now and Sunday. We got 5 because we got the Sunday night game. For those of you listening to this on WQEE 99.1 FM or Real Wise Radio, if it's still played on there, you guys will be able to hear this after the Monday night game. So these predictions and stuff for the Monday night game will be irrelevant at that point. But I will say, because of the fact that we have 5 games within the next 4 days, this is pretty cool. I do like this part about the holidays. There is one of those games I'm not really looking forward to, and we've already covered that. There's one NFC East matchup that is going to be. I feel like they planned it at that time on purpose because they knew that it was going to be a dumpster Pelican game. Nobody was going to be watching it, and that is great for those of us who are not fans of either of those teams. But now, with that being said, we are getting one step closer towards the end of the season. This is the time where teams need to make a big, viable push for their spot in the playoffs. We're going to find out who are the pretenders and who are the contenders, and I'm looking forward to seeing how things shape up over the course of the next 3 to 4 weeks before we get to the end of the actual season, to where that is the most detrimental time. But for those teams that continue to wait to the last minute to turn it up a notch or two, this is the time where you really need to turn it up right the expletive now, because putting yourself in those positions just makes you use more gas, more fuel in the tank, to by the time you get to the playoffs, you are gassed. So now's the time to figure things out seriously and get things on the right pace, because it's all about pacing yourself. Look at what the Chiefs have been doing over the past few years. They're not going to win every single game of the year, and I even told you guys this. I said they are not going to go undefeated this year, because they're going to use all the gas in the tank, and there's no way that the refs can make it look like they're not helping them out there in the playoffs if they are completely gassed. So that is why you almost saw the Panthers with an upset this past weekend. They got to have an illusion. Is it a hoax or is it not? We'll determine that at the end of the 2024 season. But right now, I need you to all keep your heads above water, not eat too much turkey this week. Throw a little bit of extra cranberry sauce in there for your boy, because I love cranberry sauce on turkey and I love Thanksgiving, okay? And I'm sad because I will not be able to, personally, I will not be having Thanksgiving until Sunday, because I will be at work on Thanksgiving. But I'm not complaining, because
bad.
Money.
That's the good.
Cole already knows. Don't have to tell you on here, but you already know. You already know Cole Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was married and had kids, probably wouldn't be volunteering for all these holidays.
Right.
But right now, it is what it is. But when it comes to this show, when it comes to football, another great episode, another great time of fun. This is episode 60, Mother, Father, and 5. And we had episode 12 of Total Football Talk extra last week. So technically, this is episode 77 of this project. I guess you want to add both of those in there. And we'll have episode 78 at some point later this week. As I said earlier in the show, normally Fridays at extra. Now, we did have a change. And I did want to at least go into a little bit more detail of it in the post game. Last week was Brian McCarthy's last episode for now, because he has got some things personally that he's going to be achieving, and I'm very proud of him for doing that. Awesome. And in order to do that, he has to make some sacrifices with certain times, and Friday he had to negate for that. So very proud of Brian. Does not mean it's the last time he will be on that show or on this. He will come back at some point in guest spots. But now that the CFL season is over, we're going to shift our focus into different things. I do have an announcement to say right here and now. Is there is a rotational set of 3 different people at the moment that we will be rotating in and out to discuss the previous recap of Monday night and Thursday night football games to kind of help ease our slate here for Mondays. But we will also be able to talk about things within the Gridiron Scoop that we'll be able to bring back for extra and try to keep the show at about an hour long set. So that is what's going on right now with extra. Things are changing a little bit. I'm not sure if this week, because it's the holidays, because those rotational people, it is a challenge because of the holiday week, and all 3 of them. Hear me. The internet did a thing. We might be having a conversation about that later. But I will say this as I wrap things up. No, not all 3 of them are going on to Thanksgiving together. But they will be traveling and may not be able to make it for this week. So I may not be doing the episode Friday because it is Black Friday. I will be shopping deals and I will be watching football. Okay. Saturday, though, very good chance. Saturday is definitely happening by then, but I wanted to at least say that this more likely will be an episode by myself because it is a holiday week and we will be getting to that rotation for next week. But just wanted to take the opportunity to clear the air with that there because I said a little bit about it at the end of the episode last week, but I was kind of vague because we were trying to roll out at that point. But with all that being said, another great episode with Cole here, episode 65. Already looking forward to next Monday because there is a dumpster Pelican game on Thanksgiving. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about the kind of nap that I took because even though we will be recapping it on extra this week, I'm going to have to find a way, even if it's in my snowflake of the week, to talk about it next Monday because of how bad the game is. And now I'm just glad to bring Cole back up on the screen.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, that game will be a turkey of the year. I know the game you're focusing on, too. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Actually, I got to thank you for creating or having the thought of actually creating Total Football Talk Extra. That means we only have to talk about that game at length. And we cannot talk about them other than just in comical ways. But, yeah.
I was glad I had a break last week.
Not
talking about
the Giants.
Giants.
Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah, I understand, brother. I understand. Oh, my goodness. Which direction do I want to go? I am a football fan, and I mean football fan from the standpoint of I can't ever get enough of watching it, listening to it, or even talking about it. And this is the time of year where you talk most about football. I know they have other parts of the year where football is prominent and king. I mean, when we begin the season in mid-September, we talk about it. And when the playoffs begin, we talk a lot about it. And, of course, when the Super Bowl 4 weeks later happens, we talk a lot about it then, too. And I love those time periods as well. Love them. Love it when the playoffs begin, which now is around MLK weekend. I love it that around Valentine's Day, we talk about the Super Bowl and we talk about it the 2 weeks prior. I love it when we talk about the playoff games that lead up to the Super Bowl. And I love when we actually count down to when the season kicks off in September. But there's something about Thanksgiving and football that is extremely special. And this Thursday will be of no exception. Yes, 2 of the 3 games, and not because the opponent with one of them are not going to be the greatest of matchups, but we're supposed to be hyped up by divisional rivals in the Detroit matchup and in the Dallas matchup. But at least the NFL saw to it that, okay, well, if those 2 are duds, you at least have a semi-quasi good game to end on Thanksgiving. So at least we'll have the Dolphins and the Packers. But I remember there was a movement where people wanted to actually ban the Lions from playing on Thanksgiving. And my thought was similar to earlier when my brother was talking about the logo of the Washington NFL franchise, which is now called the Commanders, and it being brought back is tradition. And I understand that. There's something to be said about things that are norms. There's something to be said about things that are traditional. There's something to be said about things that you can count on it no matter the year. You can count on opening gifts on Christmas. You can count on having, if you have a girlfriend, spoiling her on Valentine's Day. You can count on having fireworks on July the 4th. You can count on having holidays on most of those days. You can count on remembering the fallen in the Memorial Day. You can count on celebrating with a bang on New Year's. You can count on those things. Well, we can count on a 12:30 game in Detroit and a 4:30 game in Dallas every Thanksgiving. And I don't want that to change at all, because this is the sport of kings. And because of it, it all needs to reign and rule and rest and abide and rule supreme. Because you could try to have basketball, you could try to have other talk about other sports, you can try to have hockey, but it's always about football on Thanksgiving. Football and Thanksgiving were made to be together. And this year, we're going to celebrate it, maybe not with the best of games, but we're going to celebrate it with tradition, because tradition does matter. So, all of you out there who can and who can't participate in the cranberry, and I'm with Drew. I love cranberry dressing and turkey. Have a wonderful, happy, safe, and prosperous Thanksgiving. If you watch football on Thursday, unfortunately, like my brother, if you work, hopefully you get a chance to celebrate it at some point in the weekend. But have a wonderful Thanksgiving week, day, and weekend. And enjoy the football that's being played, even if it is Dallas Cowboys is playing.
As long as it's one. Hopefully my internet is not acting up. Hopefully my internet is not acting up. But we are
all right. Well,
finishing up with the post game. If you
yeah, it does sort of have that, but you seem to be clear now.
All right, good, because I'm plugged in, but it's saying that my connection's unstable. So this goes back to what we were talking about for last Monday. I might be making some changes this week because I'm absolutely fed up with it. But that's off-air talk. That's like TFT after dark discussions. Right now, I do have to say that this, I'm definitely glad we were able to get this in on this Monday, because my week was completely thrown off last week because we did not have this on Monday. It starts the week off great. I don't know how to say it for you, but for me, my whole week was thrown off last week because we didn't have this last Monday. So I'm glad that we finally got this in to start another week off.
Well, whether it is or not for me, I'm glad that I contribute to making your week. And my week is good when I do this with you. I enjoy the fellowship, obviously, and I enjoy talking football with someone who's as knowledgeable about it as I am. So, yeah, I totally enjoy this, and it's a great start to my week, too. But I'm glad it's a wonderful start to yours. And I'm sorry that we didn't get to have that last week because, yeah, I can understand how that could throw you off, because it threw me off, too.
I was just determined to get, and as I told you this before, even if it's a couple of days late, I'm not going to let your hard work go to waste. So even though I had to push it back to Friday, and with our schedules not aligning to where we could get back up again, I was like, there's one thing for expletive sure. I'm making sure that we do that content. We are not missing a week to where this week, for the 65th consecutive week, there is Total Football Talk.
Oh, well, thank you for making 64 happen. I totally appreciate you and all of your efforts, because it is not a one-man show for sure. This most certainly is a two-man show, and you are a huge part of why this platform is what it is and where it is and how it has become what it is. Now,
Appreciate it, my man.
no problem. I had to give you props where it's due, and that's how I roll.
I feel the same, but man, we and you definitely feel it when you're doing a solo. You probably felt it the first few minutes of today's episode, whereas to where I felt it last week too during that episode. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
Even if
It is
you have
strange.
the inclination of doubt, which we never have in each other,
Mhm.
even if you had the inclination of how much different it would be to do it solo, you know exactly in the moment
It's
how it
vastly
is. It
different.
is not the same. It
Mm-mm.
feels different. It flows faster because
Mhm.
you don't have that secondary voice in there, but it just doesn't. It's not as fun. If I
No,
do that every
it's
single
not.
week, this show would not be it. So yes, it does take two to tango, and
Mhm.
chemistry is everything. Momentum shifts are definitely important too. And
No
the only
question.
thing that's important is that we continue to have fun with it.
I agree with that. I fully agree with that. And for those of you who want to contact us, here's how you can do that. If you want to contact Drew,
Go to work.
all you all you have to just go onto the different wonderful platforms that he has. On Instagram, you can find him at Sotoba_media. At X, it's the same, Sotoba_media. And yes, he's not getting off of X. You can also find him at the Sotoba on TikTok. And you can find him at Sotoba Media on YouTube. And if you want to find yours truly, all you have to do is go on to flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. That's flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. And yes, I'm not getting off of X either.
I need to just get on it. Like I haven't been on it in a while. The one thing, and I'm gonna say this now too. There's this butterfly one now too. I forget what it's called. It's like a little blue butterfly. There are way too many social media
Blue
outlets
Sky.
now. You know what is it?
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky. Okay, I knew it was a blue something.
Mhm.
Did you sign up for that?
I haven't yet.
I don't know if I can. I don't know if mentally I can, because there is so many out there. I haven't even done a Patreon yet. Like, I feel like we're grasping at straws too much with all of these different social medias.
I'm feeling the same. I'm feeling that same energy. Yeah.
Like, what's the? I've seen people share it. It's like, to me, it's like, what's the benefit of it? I'm still mainly focused on Instagram, and I probably need to focus less on Facebook. But everybody uses it as like the general messenger. Like if you're not calling each other on phones, you're still messaging each other through Messenger. I could have a whole episode on how ridiculous it is on how many social medias we got out there. It's like now we have a social media platform for every day of the week. You're supposed to make enough money to where you have a car for every day of the week, not a social media platform for every day of the week.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous out there. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm about to say, and they're adding another one. Ugh.
I should have just picked my snowflake of the week is whoever keeps creating all these social media platforms. Whoever keeps suggesting that we have another social media platform, because what in the expletive is a blue butterfly in comparison to blue sky? I just, please, I just can't. Not anymore.
Yes, along with Facebook and Instagram and Threads and Twitch and True Social and X and now Blue Sky.
And
Wow.
some of those I didn't even subscribe to either. So I have not been sleeping under a rock. I just refuse. I am like that old man who refuses to stop eating bacon because they want me to just eat grits and watch my health. No, I will eat bacon and be happy. And in this case, I will not drink your Kool-Aid and be happy. To all those out there that are trying to twist my arm into getting another social media account. No, I do not want it. I have enough.
Oh my.
What is a Substacks?
Oh my goodness. I could continue this because I am thoroughly being entertained here. But I know, unfortunately, we have to wrap this up. So thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for hitting the notification bell. And thank you for the comments, tribe. We appreciate the love that you have and the information that you have, because we love what you have to say. And catch all the stuff that comes from the Surtoba Media YouTube channel and the Komen Media YouTube channel. It'll be worth your while. Now, for the band that is channeling Dennis Leary, Drew Willingham, I am Cole Johnson, here to say in parting as we always do. Oh, Lord. Goodness gracious. You're going to eat bacon. Oh, my God. That sounds like a Deerslayer take if I ever heard one. In life, just like a tackle, keep your head up. And remember, as always, you got to play until the whistle blows.
And as always, an additional one, too. Tom, bring back MySpace and stay safe out here in these mother-fathering streets.
It's time to go. Black Planet, Lord, no.
High five? I didn't even know what the expletive that was. But I do have one last thing. Tell your friends. I do have one last thing before the loop got me. Make sure you tell your friends that if they did not tune in today, then they took the